This is the Sons of UCF podcast, your place for UCF sports talk year-round. Now, here is Adam and Mike.
All right, welcome back into the Sons of UCF show. We are back for the 110th edition of this particular episode. I'm Adam, and as always, my good friend UCF Mike is riding shotgun. Mike, good evening, my friend. How are you?
Doing fantastic, man. Ready for another week. I am pumped up for this episode.
Wow. Okay. A lot of excitement out of Mike. He didn't sound pumped up, but trust me, he is pumped up. A lot of interesting stuff to get to here this evening. Here's the rundown of the show. As always, we have Cow of the Week. We have Mike's Picks of the Week. Those are staples. Those aren't going anywhere. But obviously, there are some news and notes. We'll touch on all that stuff. KZ, Matt Wright, bowl game, hoops. We got all that. A Mike's solo edition of UCF Observations. He was hard at work. We'll also review the Pre-Season Sonnies and see how badly we get everything wrong. And then lastly, we have Andrea Adelson from ESPN.com. She's been sort of the only national reporter with any sort of insight or any sort of availability to Mackenzie Milton. And so she will join us later on here and give us some of the inside stories and some of her conversations with Mackenzie. So a lot of show for you all coming up. So don't go anywhere. And if you were listening to us, make sure you subscribe, rate, review. You can find us wherever you get your high quality podcast. If you want to drop a little 5-star rating, if you like what Mike and I do, if you think what we do is a lot of fun, and also don't forget we're doing some live stuff these days too, Mike. Every now and again, we had a live special last week with Trace Choco. Got the pregame show coming up, so if you guys want to check out more of that, make sure you follow us on Twitter at Sons of UCF. You can also follow Mike at UCF Mike 1 and subscribe to our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, conveniently called Sons of UCF. And anytime we do one of these live show deals, you never know when they're coming your way. You will get all that stuff as soon as it releases. So that's a mouthful, Mike. A lot to get to here on this show. Let's start here quickly with Mackenzie Milton. Obviously, the news is now about a week old-ish. Mackenzie will be moving on to further endeavors in college football. Again, we have a ton of stuff with Andrea Adelson coming up, so we won't spend too much time covering it today, Mike. But now that you've had a couple of days to let this all sink in and sort of the reality is hit, what are your thoughts on Mackenzie kind of moving on, and how are you taking the news so far?
It hasn't gotten any easier for me. I've said many times on this show how much I think he's the best player we've ever had. We can pretty much say all the success we had in 2017 and 2018 is largely due to him. And the fact that he's not going to finish his career at UCF still hurts a little bit. And that we didn't get to see him play one last time kind of hurts me. And the last time we saw him in pads and uniform, he was getting carted off 2 years ago against the Cavs. I would have liked one more game out of him, one more series or something, just a little goodbye. You know when you break up with your girlfriend, you get the one last goodbye sex.
Hey, now.
We didn't get the goodbye sex with Mackenzie.
Baby,
he's leaving, and we don't get that. And that's probably what bothers me the most. I would have liked to see him play one more time.
I'm not sure how I'm going to write this in the show notes, but we'll figure out a way to work it in there. No pun intended. But it hasn't gotten any easier. I will tell you, on Monday, his mother on Instagram released a photo of them flying back home for the holidays, and he's got a UCF neck gaiter on. He's got a UCF neck pillow, and that was kind of one that hit me, and I was like, damn, in 2 weeks, he's going to be rocking an FSU or an Arkansas or an Ole Miss or whatever college, stuff, instead of UCF. And that one kind of hit me a little bit too, because, he's meant so much to UCF, and it hasn't gotten much easier. But what hit me the other day, Mike, is that we're at a position now, and this is going to sound really, really cruel, but I started realizing, over the weekend, we have to sort of move forward. I mean, we've talked a lot about what's happened, when Mackenzie leaving, but obviously now we know exactly what our future holds for us, and we know, the conversations about him coming back, all that stuff's kind of settled. We know it's Dylan Gabriel's team. Not that we never really knew that to begin with, but now it's almost like, is it appropriate? When is it appropriate to kind of turn our eyes towards the future? And not that we don't care about Mackenzie anymore, but to say, okay, he's going to go elsewhere, and we have to think about the next thing. I don't know. To your point, when's it okay to move on after the breakup?
I guess it's got to be now.
All right, now it is.
2017 was 3 years ago. And college football, usually guys are gone after 3-4 years anyway. So that day was going to come. It's not like NFL where the guy's going to be here for 10, 15 years and he's your quarterback for a while. Eventually, they all leave. And it's maybe not the way we all thought it was going to happen. We would have loved to see him win a Heisman here, take us to the playoff. There were still many things that we thought he could do here that are not going to happen. But, yeah, it's time to move forward now. I mean, who knows how much time we have with Dylan Gabriel. Talk to him if he has another great year next year. Who knows if he wants to leave Test the Waters a year early. That's a possibility. So we got to start looking towards the future. Who do we have in the quarterback room? Remember, Darryl Mack is also transferring. So we have Quadri Jones coming back, and
Parker.
Who else? We got the young kids, Parker Navarro, and if we're signing this kid Mikey Keene, we don't know anything about those guys. They're coming over from Arizona. Nobody's seen them play here. We've seen highlight tapes, and that's it.
Well, you mentioned, I was thinking about this earlier today, not a knock on anybody else, but the quarterbacks that Dylan Gabriel has had to fend off, and basically has, I don't want to say run out of town, but has kind of caused to have to relook their futures, right? You have Brandon Wimbush. We forget about him because he was only here for a hot minute, but the guy was a 2-year starter at Notre Dame, right? He wasn't exactly like he was on the trash heap. You have Darryl Mack, who, came in and, for all the things that maybe Mack had to continue to work on. I mean, the guy who won a conference championship game, had as a, one possession away from, potentially, tying and winning a Fiesta Bowl. And then you have Mackenzie Milton, arguably the best quarterback UCF's ever seen. And Dylan Gabriel's unseated all of them. And that's crazy to think about for a second, because, he didn't come, he came in with some hype and some fanfare, but, he wasn't like a 5-star recruit, or we all said this is the next big thing. And there was a lot of people actually weren't even sure if he would start as a freshman. And here we are. And, he's kind of unseated 3 really named, really, really talented quarterbacks in just 2 years. And that's crazy to think about.
Yeah. Not only not starting it last year, he was supposed to redshirt coming in. He was number 3. And if Darryl Mack doesn't hurt himself in the offseason, he might never even get on the field. If Mack comes out and has a great season, who knows if we even saw him last year, and who knows if he would have stuck around for this year, if that was the case. But he's earned his spot, man. He has played very well over these 2 years. You see the potential. You can see what this kid has, man. He's got it all. All he has to do now is win those big ones. But the stats, he's going to break every record we have as long as he stays healthy and he stays here for another year or two. Forget it. He's going to break every single record we have at UCF. And now he has to put it all together and win the big games. And it's not all on him. Obviously, the defense has to do their part and the rest of the team. But he's got to be the guy to put us over the hump.
Well, quickly to close the chapter on Mackenzie, at least for the story that we have it as of today, obviously Andrea Adelson will give you some more insight on her conversations with Mackenzie and what she's learned. One thing she did not want to go into that Mike and I can speculate on here quickly is Mackenzie's next stop. Obviously we'll spend some time going over this stuff as it comes out. We'll obviously make sure we talk about it. But, the rumors that are floating around here, Mike, as we record this on Monday, Florida State is a school that's gaining a lot of momentum. There are people who are saying that conversations have taken place and Mackenzie is seriously considering that school. Seems a bit of a head scratcher considering what we heard Mackenzie's stated criteria was. But Florida State's a school you're hearing a little bit about out there. There's some talk about Miami, and that's really contingent upon De'Ara King. Some Twitter reporting today, and whether or not you believe Twitter reporting is up to you. But some reporting today had it that De'Ara King, who I do believe Mackenzie does know him a little bit because they obviously played against each other at Houston. They both suffered injuries around the same time and were out for a period of time. So I do think there is a relationship there. But story goes that De'Ara King reached out to Mackenzie and told him, "Hey, I'm going pro after this year." So some people are speculating Miami's an option. And then you have a couple of dark horse teams. I think Arkansas, Mike, is another team that you're hearing people talk about. Offensive coordinator there is Kendall Briles. He is the brother-in-law of one Jeff Lebby, who obviously was at UCF. Tight ends coach there is John Cooper, previously tight ends coach at UCF. So there are some connections there. So Arkansas is another school you're hearing from. And I'm sure there's other schools out there, Mike, that are going to, kick the tires a little bit and reach out to Casey. But as of right now, there really isn't a ton of intel where he was going. I think those are probably the 3 schools that we've heard from the most.
I think if you gave him true serum, I think he would tell you he wants to stay in Florida. His family has moved all the way from Hawaii. Both his parents have relocated themselves here in the last 5 years. And I mean, who knows what it'd be like for them to just pick up and move, get a different job. I don't know what their situation is, but I think he'd like to stay somewhere where they can keep living where they're living now and drive to his games. So Florida State or Miami would make sense. Of course, those are the teams that us as fans would probably have the hardest time seeing him at, just because of the hatred a lot of us have for those schools. And if you go on Twitter and stuff, UCF fans are fighting with Miami fans and Florida State fans all the time about everything. So now if they took our favorite player away from us, that would not be pleasant for a lot of us, I'm sure. Arkansas would be okay. I think pretty much everybody in UCF land would say, fine, Arkansas, that's an SEC school. We have no problems with Arkansas. We can root for him there without any problems. We can root for him playing against the Gators and all that stuff. That'd be fun. So there's some options out there for him where I think we'd be okay with it. And then we've been saying Hawaii all this time, and not one whisper or anything has come out about him going back to Hawaii, which, if you think about it, next year is the first year that players can start marketing themselves and making money on their own likeness and all that stuff. He'd make a killing going back to Hawaii, I think, financially. The marketability for him over there would be crazy. But that doesn't seem like one of the options right now.
Well, I think to clean up his parent, I believe his mom lives with him in Orlando. I think his dad is still commuting. I think his dad spends a lot of time in Hawaii. I don't know if he lives out in Florida full time. So I think there is some Hawaii roots. Obviously, I think they still have a house there, and they obviously have a place here in Orlando. So that's interesting. But yeah, you don't hear a lot of Hawaii. I think the conventional thinking is that he wants to be on a stage where he can be on TV every week and have scouts look at him. Obviously, the Hawaii games are going to be on pretty late in the East Coast. So there's probably some wonder, some worry about, okay, will he, get a chance to be seen as much? I'm of the belief, Mike, we talked about this on the show we did last week with Trace on the Sons of UCF Live edition. Scouts are going to find him if he's on the field playing someplace. He's a name. He's a kid people have seen play before. His talent was there. I think scouts will always kind of check in on him. And freaking every year, I'm watching Monday Night Football as we record this, and Josh Allen is playing quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. Mike, where did Josh Allen go to college?
I have no idea.
I think he went to Wyoming, I think was where he went to school. And I'm not saying that Mackenzie Milton is Josh Allen, don't get me wrong, but if you're a good football player, and especially if you're a quarterback, you will be found. So if you go to Wyoming, if you go to Arkansas, if you go to Gardner-Webb, if you go to Chadron State, if you're a good quarterback, you have a chance to be found, and especially if you have a name like Mackenzie's. But I understand that he wants to maybe push himself and compete at a high level, at the highest level he can. So it's interesting. Maybe some West Coast schools. I think UCLA is another West Coast school that is some conventional thinking. Chip Kelly obviously has a connection with Scott Frost. And obviously Nebraska is still a possibility. There are rumors floating around that won't happen. If you saw Nebraska play, they actually won this past weekend. Adrian Martinez looked serviceable. So maybe that's not an avenue to go down. But either way, it's fun to have the conjecture. Mackenzie will take some time and obviously consider what's right for him. And as soon as that decision is made, Mike, I'm sure you, me, everybody on the free UCF land will we'll cover that at length too. But another big story broke on Monday, and that is UCF's bowl season. We had talked about whether or not this would be a reality, if something would happen, and there was a lot of rumors, but I think everyone was pointing towards the same thing, and turns out we were all pointing correctly. December 22nd, 7 p.m., the Boca Raton Bowl, the roofclaim.com, ironically enough, Boca Raton Bowl, UCF against, quote, an unnamed ACC school. So UCF against blank right now, Mike. Are you fired up for the Boca Bowl?
I am extremely fired up for this game. One, it's a 20-minute Uber ride for me. I will be at the game for sure. Tickets, I believe, go on sale this week. I'll scoop up a couple myself. I don't know if I'm bringing the wife and kids, but it's a possibility. I guess there's no school that week. Maybe they want to go. If not, I will just go with a friend of mine. The fact that it's against an ACC school, I think that's even better than we had planned, because usually that bowl is against like a Sun Belt school or Conference USA, I believe. So we couldn't have drawn it up any better. We're staying in the state of Florida, and we get a pretty decent opponent. Now, who that opponent's going to be, they haven't determined yet. I have a couple of teams that I would like to see. Yeah, if it's going to be an ACC school, I'd love to get another shot at Pittsburgh.
Yes, sir.
I think a lot of us would.
That Narduzzi, I tell you what.
They're a rubber match, and after we beat them down in 2018, and they did the pit special on us last year, I'd love to get match number 3 with these guys, with Heupel and Dylan Gabriel now. For the rematch, I mean, we're 0-2 this year on revenge games, so we need to get one of those.
Okay.
Other possibility would be who? Virginia, I've seen thrown in there. That doesn't excite me very much.
Virginia Tech's another one that's out there.
Right, Virginia Tech. We haven't played them in a while, but we played them a couple times in the early 2000s. That'd be a nice. I mean, that doesn't get me excited, but that's okay. Yeah. We can avenge a couple of those losses we had to them earlier. I don't think it's going to be Miami or the tops. Obviously, it's not going to be Clemson or Notre Dame. I don't think it would be Miami either.
No.
Florida State, I don't think is going to a bowl, right?
They shouldn't.
So it's going to be one of these middle tier schools. A lot of them we've played before. It could be North Carolina, the team that we were supposed to open the season with. That'd be a fun matchup. A game that we got taken away from us in the beginning of the year. We played here at the end. That'd be fun. NC State, obviously we've played them a couple times. That'd be a rubber match between the two schools. We beat them in 2007, and then we lost to them in 2010 with the Godfrey game when we waited too long to bring them in. So we have history with a lot of these teams. Like Boston College, we played a couple times. That'd be another rubber match game. Who else? Any of those middle tier ACC schools. But it's better than playing Marshall again, right? Or Liberty, I guess. A lot of people were speculating for the last month or so. So I am pretty excited about the Boca Raton Bowl.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people are not, but
yeah.
What do you think?
It could have been worse. Yeah, to your point, it could have been worse, right? I think UCF Liberty, that's a no-win situation for us, right? Because if we beat Liberty, it's like, you beat Liberty, right? And Liberty's got a good team this year, right? I think they're still undefeated, if I have that right. They have a good team, and if we, go then we lose to Liberty, it's like, you guys can't even beat Liberty, right? So that was going to be a problem no matter what. To your point, it's a quick drive down. Good news for everybody listening. Your boy here actually took off those days of work, so there's an outside chance. I got family still down there. Outside chance your boy makes an appearance at the Boca Raton Bowl. So everybody sit tight for that. I'm sure you're anxiously wondering if that'll happen. Let's
do it, dude. Come on. Live pregame show from the parking lot.
Wife and kids want to go, which is odd. My wife's former roommate, Mike, who she has family in Boca. She actually is coming down. She's asking if we're going to go, she wants to go too. So we could have a Knights Crossing reunion there at the Boca Raton Bowl, which will excite probably nobody on listening to this. But yeah, I think the matchup is interesting. I think you're looking at a pool of candidates between Pitt. I think Virginia Tech is an option. I don't think Virginia is, because Virginia, their coach today, Bronco Mendenhall, made a comment about ACC asked them to play a game on the 19th. And he essentially said, my kids don't want to wait around and play on the 19th, which would make you wonder if they want to wait around and play on the 22nd. So Virginia maybe is out of the picture. So Pitt, Virginia Tech, North Carolina would be fantastic too. And then North Carolina State, I think, is your other option. So I think if I'm picking between those 4 schools, I would take any of those. I think Virginia Tech would probably be 4th on that list just because they haven't really had a great season. But if you give me revenge at Pitt, you give me that matchup I'm supposed to have against North Carolina, and then NC State's a pretty solid football team, I'll take any of those on a random Tuesday before Christmas, so you can travel and get back home for Christmas. You're not trying to get out and get out either on Christmas Eve or the day after Christmas or something like that. So it's maybe a little easier travel wise for people, right down the turnpike for most folks. So I think it could have been a lot worse, and let's just hope it goes on at this point. But all in all, I would say it's a pretty favorable opportunity for UCF.
Right, I actually forgot the third matchup we had with NC State when they beat us in the bowl game
You did
a couple of years ago. So this would be the 4th matchup with them. We need to avenge that game too. Pitt would be my first choice. North Carolina would be my second choice. NC State, I guess, would be my third. But like I said, I will be there for sure. And now you got to get your act together and let me know. So tickets go on sale this week. We know how many tickets to get.
Acts are getting together again. Days off of work. It's COVID that's the issue. I mean, I gotta figure that out. But whatever. So yeah.
Well, they're only gonna sell I think 20% of the stadium, so that's only 6,000 tickets.
Well, if you got in,
actually might be a tough ticket.
I know, that's what I'm saying. If you got an in, let me know, because if I need to bring the entire family, that's a 4 spot right there. Plus if you are bringing your family, obviously you know how many people you have, and if we have other people who want to come along with us, I mean, we're all of a sudden this thing is getting out of hand. So we'll sit tight. Maybe Sons of UCF. We actually tried to do this like 2 years ago, and I got poxed out of going from a work situation. So maybe this is the right time to get to Boca Raton this time and watch the Knights play. So We'll have more preview once we know who our opponent is. But so far, a fairly favorable matchup. And then sticking in the football world really quickly, Mike, our very own Matt Wright made his NFL debut today in a loss, unfortunately. The Steelers go down to the Washington football team, but Matt Wright had a field goal and 2 extra points. So Matt Wright, I believe I saw UCF Sports Info on Twitter said that he's now the 66th former Knight to play in the NFL. So big kudos and congrats to Matt Wright.
It's been a long time now coming for him. He's been staying in shape and just waiting for his opportunity, and congratulations to him handling the kickoff today. That must have been quite a thrill for him.
All right, well, coming up next, something that wasn't thrilling. Let's take a quick break, and we'll talk hoops, Mike. UCF went up and battled the Wolverines of Michigan, and so let's take a quick commercial here, and we'll come back and we'll discuss all things UCF hoops. Don't move. Commercial time. Well, it started off good. And then everything went downhill. So let's talk men's hoops for a moment here. Coming off a really impressive victory at home against Auburn, the 1-0 Knights traveled all the way up to Michigan, which first of all should be no small feat. Obviously, a ton of games are being canceled across the nation, so UCF getting up there safely and actually getting the game in was probably no small feat. Mike, and speaking of small feat, initially our boys looked pretty good. We were off on the races early on. We had a sizable lead. We were up at 12-13 at one point there early in the first half. The boys were looking good. Things were things were falling. We had some guys playing really well, and then we played the rest of the game. 38-34 was the halftime score. Michigan proceeded to go on a 42-24 run, and that pretty much sealed the deal. Wolverines 80, Knights 58, Mike. Tough one on Sunday night in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I was really excited at the start of this game, man. I didn't expect us to go up there and win. But coming off the first game against Auburn, I thought we were going to be pretty competitive. And at the start, man, these guys were on fire. I was like, who are these guys? We are a basketball school now, and I was jacked up. And then the second half hit. We're late first half is when Michigan really started turning it around. And luckily, I was watching this on the delay, so I had it recorded, and I was able to fast forward a lot of this part of the second half. They were just a better team than us, and tough spot for us to go on the road, and the beginning of a really tough stretch for us. And a learning experience for these guys. And remember, we're playing without a true point guard, too. We got a couple injuries there. So it would have been I think it would have been a huge upset if we pulled that one off.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think many people expected that to be what happened. But here's the problem. So let me give you a little Adam Hoops breakdown analysis. Early on, I tweeted this against Auburn, and I retweeted it early on because it felt true. Our defense is long. They're athletic. They're rangy. They get their hands in passing lanes. When we get out on the break and we're able to kind of push the pace and push the tempo a little bit, which is what you saw us do early on, that's when UCF is dynamic, right? Because you think about all the athletic wing players that we have. When you add in C.J. Walker, you add in Isaiah Adams, Dre Fuller is actually playing pretty well. Brandon Mahan, for a smaller guard, is not afraid to go to the hoop. We had guys who were getting to the basket who were just active. We employed a little bit of a press early on. I think we had Michigan kind of back on their heels. And we came out, Mike, and we took a pretty big lead just based on our athleticism and on our just our kind of a defensive ability. But then Michigan kind of figured some stuff out. They brought in a big freshman named Hunter Dickinson, and I think a 6'10", 6'11" kid, and they just kept feeding this kid on the inside, right? They drive and dished him every time. He was getting easy putbacks if someone missed a shot, and quickly our inability to kind of block out became a problem. C.J. Walker then got some early foul troubles. One of them was kind of nonsense, but C.J. Walker came in some early foul trouble. And before you knew it, Michigan was kind of unloading. And all this was really without much from Darren Green. I don't think he had but 2 to 3 points in the first half alone. So 38-34 without your best player, Darren Green, really as part of the scoring, you felt okay. But I think the problem, Mike, is if you watch that first half and that second half, when UCF gets caught in that half-court offense, we don't know who we are. We don't, that's where you can't, out-athlete somebody sometimes, right? Because we're kind of running these high pick and screens, and we're looking for guys to maybe come open. We got Darren Green coming off of pin downs to try to get some shots. Michigan was contesting those. We don't have a big man down low. Reynolds played 12 minutes, only 4 points. Sean Mobley, we'll get to that in a second. Avery Diggs, And so we kind of don't have an identity on the offensive end if we're not pushing the pace. And Michigan just kind of ate our lunch there. They got a rebound, and all of a sudden they went on a break, started hitting threes, and that was the ball game. So quick little breakdown there. We just our athleticism was great early on, but when they forced us into the half court, into half court offense, we just had no answers for that.
All right, and the one area that I was concerned with coming out of last year and this year, who's going to be the guy to get the rebounds on this team? And so far, we still don't have an answer. Our leading rebounder was Brandon Mahan with 5. He's a guard. We're our big guys out there. Michigan out-rebounded us 44-29. We only had 9 offensive rebounds on the day. That's a big difference, obviously, getting those second shot opportunities. And we kind of went cold there in the second half. I mean, we were hitting all our shots early, and then we hit a cold streak, and they were able to go on a big run. So those things happen. A little encouraging thing, 11 for 11 from free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we're not used to around here. So that's nice to see. But again, a game, I don't think any of us thought we were going to win, and we were proven right.
Yeah, and only 9 turnovers, which, again, UCF teams in the past, we'd had 15, 16, 20 turnovers a game, so 9 turnovers. All this coming without a true point guard, and that's another thing to consider with all this is, Darius Perry is out. Johnny Dawkins' press availability, he just said he hopes to have him back in 2021. I think he would clarify that later to mean January of 2021, so hopefully we're on the corner. Tony Johnson Jr., we're not quite sure what happened there, but he had some sort of injury, and it looks like, I believe surgery is on tap, and he'll be out for a period of time. So once again, we're kind of snake-bitten on the injury front. It seems like UCF's had this problem year over year. Early on in the season, we lose a key player to an injury, and so without a true point guard, obviously it changes a little bit about the offense. I think Dre Fuller's done a serviceable job. Brandon Mahan as well, handling the ball and getting us into our sets and whatnot. But A, what are those sets? And then B, can any of those guys, penetrate, drive, and dish? And if we can't get guys to get to the hoop, then we're just going to be running this offense all day, and that's never going to work. Foul trouble was also a killer, Mike. There was a couple of really bad foul calls. C.J. Walker was pretty frustrated. He got a third early in the second half, and only ended up playing 14 minutes. I think that took him out of his groove. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet either, too, by the way. Auburn, I think he played a little bit, but I don't think we've seen the best out of C.J. Walker. So if you're looking at positives, at some point we get a point guard in there. Maybe we get C.J. Walker to sort of get in rhythm. And early on, man, Isaiah Adams is looking like the real deal. Mr. Basketball in Florida, 11 points, 3 rebounds. He's looking like the real deal. So some positives to take away from what otherwise was a drubbing at Michigan.
Yeah, I was going to mention Adams, too. He does look good. Only 2 games in, but he doesn't look scared at all for a true freshman. And he's contributed both games. And you mentioned we haven't seen the best of C.J. Walker. We haven't seen the best of Darren Green yet either. It's only been 2 games, but he hasn't lit anything up yet, and that's coming. We know that's coming. So some positives, and it doesn't look like Tony Johnson's coming back at all this year. So
yeah. We also need to figure out what to do on the inside. Jamil Reynolds, true freshman, he played 12 minutes. He, okay, 4 points, 2 boards. Sean Mobley, transfer from VCU. There were some rough moments for Sean. He wasn't his most fantastic game. Only 5 points, 4 boards. Avery Diggs came in some garbage time. Doumbia luckily didn't jack up that many threes because he got really 3 happy in the Auburn game. But 13 minutes, he gives you some energy, Mike. But we got to figure out who our big men are because. That could be a challenge early on. Michigan, obviously is going to have some taller players, being a Big Ten school and whatnot, but our inside presence, to your point, I think C.J. Walker was our leading rebounder against Auburn with 8, I think. Mahan leading with 5, so 2 kind of non-traditional non-power players, leading in rebounding doesn't really bode well on the defensive boards.
Yeah, it's going to be a work in progress. We got a tough one coming up now with Houston, the first conference game of the year, and we're at Florida State. Florida State typically has some big guys there too. That's going to be a tough one for us too. So it's going to be a lot about matchups and a lot about how we can have these guards step up into the point guard role and lead us here for the next couple games. We said we had to go. We'd be happy with 3-3 to start. Well, one of them got canceled, so now we've got 3 more.
Yeah.
We're going to go 2-1 in these next three. We have two conference games. Obviously, the big ones, Houston and Cincinnati, and then Florida State. I mean, those are tough games, man.
Yeah.
I'd take 1 and 2, I guess, now at this point.
Yeah, so Houston on the 15th, Florida State on the 19th, and Cincinnati on the 22nd. Probably going to be an afternoon game leading into the Boca Bowl for UCF there. So really, they're three probably toughest games within 7 days of each other. So that's a tough stretch, particularly if we're not going to have a full complement of guys. But again, the team is young, they're athletic, and we'll see, man. You never know what can happen. Guys hit shots, you play defense, you get into rhythm. Unfortunately, only the Cincinnati game is a home game, so Houston and Florida State both on the road. And obviously, let's hope those games even take place, right? You never know what will happen with some of the COVID stuff. But it's funny how things change. Like after Auburn, we were like, basketball school, here we go. This team, they're young. We got it. And after this game, I was like, what the hell are we doing? We suck. What are we, who's out there? What are we? It's funny how things turn in a dime. But I guess, there's still some optimism. We'll see what takes place. But there are still some things to like. But certainly this team has a lot of growing to do as the season progresses.
Well, we have a lot of knee-jerk reactions around here, and that's typically what fans do, especially on Twitter and on these social media forums. So, yeah, it's only been 2 games, and you got to look at – usually I like to break down the schedules into sections or whatever. We have this first 6 games, and we'd be happy with 3-3, and then we have another section of the game, and just kind of break it down like that, and then you look at it in 10-game quadrants, or not quite, I don't know what you want to call them, but it's still too early to tell what this team is. They're still learning. They're still gelling together. We'll find out soon. And it's good to have these tough tests early in the year. I think that's going to help us down the road later this season.
Obviously, the goal with any year is, conference championship and getting in that conversation and then getting into the tournament. Who knows what the tournament will be this year? Who knows how many teams? You'd love to see this team gel and get a chance to fight for a tournament spot. If not, maybe get into an NIT, at least get some postseason experience, depending on where we are at that point. So again, it's early. It's early on. Again, tune in on the 15th. I don't think we have a time or a TV yet announced for that game, but it's at Houston on a Tuesday night. So tune in and let's see if the Knights can get back on the +1 column in the keywords of Josh Heupel, Mike. But let's transition quickly. Typically, we do UCF observations, and usually you have yours, I have mine. Well, in a rampant miscommunication this week, you wrote yours. I did not write mine. I have none. I have nothing. So this is a UCF Mike solo UCF observations here. So there was no football game, rather, a couple of basketball games. So even I don't know what Mike's going to have in UCF observations, Mike. So why don't you just wow us with what you have here? I'll cede the floor to you, Mike. UCF observations, ready, go.
No pregame show this week. But the Suns still go live with a KZ special. You can't get rid of us.
You can't. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, we'll see how we layer this live stuff in. Trace has been more than gracious, giving us his time and adding a third voice in there, so you don't just always hear Mike and I and everything. And we'll see. We'll see what goes on later in the year. We got some cool hoops games coming up. But yeah, maybe we're not done just yet.
Yeah, I see a lot of opportunities. Obviously, if we're going to be at the Boca Bowl, maybe we don't even do a pregame, but maybe we'll have to do a special before that game or something. But you'll be seeing our faces a lot for these next couple months.
Thanks.
How did we give up 50 points to Memphis? I'm still scratching my. Memphis is not good, man. It's turning out that's a bad loss for us.
It is. Yeah, it's a bad loss. That's a tough one.
All right, if McKenzie goes to an in-state school, can we make him negotiate in a 1-1 deal with UCF? So if he goes to Florida State, says, "Hey, I'll sign with you guys, but you got to sign a home and home with UCF." You think you can work that in?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the school. I mean, Florida State's probably pretty desperate, so they probably would do it. Miami probably not so much. Yeah, I think he could probably swing that. But it's got to be after he's gone, though. I don't want to play against McKenzie, so obviously we can't do this thing with Coastal and BYU where we schedule a game on Thursday or something. Like I don't want to face McKenzie across the other side. I just can't do that to myself.
No, yeah, that goes without being said. He says to Miami, "Okay, I'll sign with you guys, but you sign a 1-1 or hey, a 2-2. You play UCF after I leave for the next 4 years, 2 here, 2 there, and I'll sign right now." That'd be nice.
Well, let me ask you this question. All right, so that happens. Mackenzie, goes on and he goes to Miami, like you say, and he plays his 1 year and does okay. They don't win a championship, but he plays serviceable. He tries to go to the league, maybe it doesn't work out. He's on some practice squads here and there, and then the UCF Miami game rolls around on a Saturday at the Bounce House. Mackenzie shows up. What's he wearing?
Oh, come on. That's not even a question.
Is it? Is it not a question? I just asked it. It feels like a question.
It can't be a question. He's in black and gold.
Okay.
Has to be.
Okay. Just making
and
sure.
This would be a nice little one last thing. We didn't get to see him play for us one more time, but that'd be a cool gift that he gives us on the way out, right?
Let me ask you this: if he shows up in green and orange, does he get booed? Does he get booed?
Some of us probably do.
Yeah. All right. I'm just asking. Yeah, you guys can all decide amongst yourself if Mackenzie shows up one day in the Bounce House wearing the colors of his new team as they're playing against UCF. You can decide what you want to do.
All right, this kind of leads me right into my next one. People who say they will root for him anywhere he goes will be throwing up in their mouths when they see him do the Gator Chomp next year.
Man.
That would be tough. You see him score a touchdown even for Miami and put up the U sign? Oh, I don't know, man. I don't think I can deal with it. Doing the tomahawk chop up in Tallahassee?
Man,
I'm telling you, it's not going to be as easy as everybody says it's going to be.
Yeah, I want to be that mature guy who says, you know what, good for him. I wish him the best and yada yada yada. But you're right. It's going to be tough. Like you made the analogy on the live show about losing your wife or something. I forget what it was, but it is always tough to see your ex with her his or her new lover. So yeah. Let's just hope he's doing the pig suey thing in Arkansas.
Yeah, we want him to do well, but not as well as us, right?
There you go. There you
go. Well, being a basketball school was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, sure was. Auburn must be bad. Jeez.
The New York Football Giants are back. Did you see that win yesterday?
Do you have a Colt McCoy jersey? Do you have a Colt McCoy jersey yet or no?
No.
Okay.
No. McCoy did his job. Maybe you have to play one more week or whatever. But the defense is, the Giants are back. Tell me a team in the NFC that they can't beat.
New Orleans, Green Bay.
Nah, we can beat those guys.
Okay. You told me to tell you a team. I told you a team.
All right, maybe. I'm not saying we definitely beat those guys, but I don't think there's been one game this year where the Giants were out of it. It was the San Francisco game. Every other game they were right in there, even when they started out, whatever they started out, 1-7 or whatever it was.
Okay, they're way better than my Cowboys. I got no room.
Yeah. I am pumped up for the Boca Bowl. #2020.
Yeah, things you probably didn't think you were going to say at the beginning of the year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's interesting. I was reading a stat. I don't know how many teams, but UCF is only one of a handful of teams that got all of their games played this year. And I think that's really important to think about. Like, you think about the sacrifice that all these kids made and the coaches and the wives and the parents to get all those games in. And obviously, UCF and getting a chance to then, I don't want to say hand pick your bowl game, but it sounds like this is where things were heading initially. To not have to travel, to go right on down the road there. Obviously, a lot of kids from the South Florida area, so that maybe that makes it easier for some stuff. But all things considered, with where we are, I mean, you're not wrong. Actually, you're really not wrong.
The Boca Bowl is sponsored by RoofClaim.com. That's irony, my friends.
Yeah, paging Randy Fine. Does he know about this? Because if he does, oof. And another tie-in, this is obviously Danny White's brother is the AD at Boca. And last time we were there, you were there, it was a complete bleep show. So hopefully they've gotten their act together since then, huh?
Yeah, I warned everybody in the parking lot. I said, we got to start making our ways in. I got in there before kickoff. I know a lot of people did not. They got there in the second quarter.
Now, granted, that was a fuller crowd. It was obviously will be markedly less people this time around. But still, let's hope Boca got their act together.
Yeah, it should be pretty easy to get in the stadium this time.
And what's the swag bag for roofclaim.com? What are you getting as a gift bag? What are you getting, shingles? Like, we got to figure that out too.
A couple of roof tiles. I don't know. Some adhesive maybe.
Flex Seal.
The If Mackenzie goes to Gainesville, my number 10 jersey, eBay, collision course.
Wow.
I think that's the one that would hurt me the most if he went to the Gators.
Now, let's say he just goes there, but he doesn't. Maybe he doesn't play. Maybe he gets beat out, or he's only plays a couple games and he gets benched for whatever reason, and he doesn't really make a big mark. Are you okay with it then, or is it only going to be if he actually, makes the Gator chomp and leads them to a big win at Tennessee? Not that that's hard to do, by the way. Does the amount of success he has dictate whether or not that jersey gets put up for $59.99?
I guess, but I don't know. It's hard for me to answer this until it actually happens. I don't know what my reaction is going to be when I see him do a press conference or I see him in the spring game for these guys. Right now, I'm telling you, I don't think I'm going to react well.
Okay, you've
Whether
been
he
warned.
Plays a lot.
If you listen to the show, you've been warned now that if you're coming here for sentimental KZ takes, if he's wearing the blue and orange, you might want to tune into somebody else.
We're a women's basketball school now, baby. We beat LSU the other day.
Man, I forget who made this comment. I want to give the person credit. I forget off the top of my head. Somebody said that Coach Abe is the best coach hire that Danny White's made.
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument to be made.
That may be true. That may be true.
Frost was the big one. He's gone now. Heupel was a big one, but now everybody wants him fired.
Yeah. Randy Shannon was a big one. They want him fired.
Greg Lovelady seemed to have the baseball team going in the right direction last year, and it got cut very short. So who knows what we're up to there?
I think he hired. Hold on, I think he hired John Roddick, the tennis coach. So maybe Roddick.
All right, there you go.
Okay.
Don Williams puts us in his top 25. The devil is a master of disguise, my friends. Takes on many forms. I'll see that guy in hell. I don't. He's up to something with that. I don't know.
I just think he just recycled last year's ballot because he stopped watching football.
I think he's just, craves attention. Maybe he thought putting us in the top 25 would get him some attention. I don't know.
Well, it's ultimate heel turn.
Two
right?
other guys voted for us.
Ultimate heel turn, right? Because now he's like, hey, all right, I'll get these UCF fans on my side, and then next year he's going to come out and we're going to have a loaded team, and he's going to be like, boom, 36, right? So it's the ultimate heel turn. He's trying to get a favor so he can pull the okie doke on us. Don't fall for it.
Yeah, two other guys voted for us. One guy has us as high as number 20.
I like these people.
So I think right now, what are we, like 30? I think we're 30, something like that.
Yeah.
So a win in a Boca Bowl against Pittsburgh, depending on what happens to other teams, we may finish the season in the top 25 again.
Oh, what's
a possibility?
What's Pitt's record? I don't even know.
I think they're like 500.
Usually, I'm
5 and 5 or something
asking
like that.
me the questions here. Let's check out ACC records.
I looked it up earlier. I think they were.
Don't you worry here, buddy. I got you taken care of here. We're looking at a Pitt Panther team.
Yeah, 5 and 5. I nailed it.
5 and 5. You did nail it. Look at that.
4 and 5 in conference.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I think North Carolina would probably guarantee us more of a shot, being 7 and 3. But I don't know if we'll get a chance to get them. But
I didn't realize NC State was 8 and 3.
I told you they're a good team. They're a good. That'd actually be another school. If we get either of the Carolinas, that could give us a chance to vault into the top 25. But let's not put carts before horses. I don't know what that means, by the way, but we don't know who's playing yet. We don't know who's opting in, opting out, who's injured, who's not injured. Obviously, a lot of stuff will be coming around soon, and we will get you up to speed and all that. But we're going to take a quick break here. Coming up next, we were able to catch up with ESPN.com's Andrea Adelson to talk all things Mackenzie Milton. Andrea, of course, does a great job covering the ACC and SEC for ESPN.com, and she's coming up right after the break. Don't move a muscle. Sons of UCF.
The Suns have a new interview. Listen up.
All right, Andrew, we appreciate you taking some time to join us on the show tonight. And let's start with the chronology here. Obviously, you've done some really great reporting on everything around Mackenzie Milton. And that first started on a story you did leading up to the game against South Florida on Black Friday. You had a chance to sit down with Mackenzie, and he had some pretty interesting quotes. And one of the quotes specifically that struck me is he referenced kind of wanting to play and wanting to go to Coach Heupel and maybe having a package of plays. What can you tell us about what Mackenzie's intentions were and kind of what he wanted to have happen leading into that game against South Florida?
So I think Mackenzie was really torn because, as it turns out, he was already considering leaving UCF at that point, now that we know everything that has happened. And so I really do feel as if he wanted one last opportunity to take a snap for UCF. But at the same time, he also didn't want to take away from Dylan Gabriel and obviously Quadri, who's ahead of him on the depth chart. And he knew what his role was on this team. He didn't want to take anything away from those guys. He has been the scout team quarterback. He fully understood that. He knows that this is Dylan's team right now. But going into that USF game, knowing that he was back in the place where everything changed for him, his entire life changed, not just his career, but everything in his life, knowing that it might be his final time at UCF if he ended up going through with the decision to leave the team. I think he just wanted some kind of role so that it wouldn't end with him being carted off the field in a UCF uniform. So ultimately, obviously, the decision was made for him to not play in the game. And I asked Mackenzie about that, and he just said in the end, he just wasn't there in terms of where he felt medically, where Coach Heupel felt with where he was medically, with where the trainers felt he was. And he wants to be at 100% full go the next time he is on a football field. So I understand the mixed emotions that he was going through there, because I can only imagine how difficult it must have been for him on the sideline in that game, considering what happened the last time UCF and USF played in Tampa, knowing I'm never going to have another chance to play for UCF again.
Well, having spoken to him kind of the leading up to that game and understanding that he had intentions of wanting to play and trying to play, were you surprised when it was announced kind of as kickoff was looming that he would not play?
I actually was a little surprised because Mackenzie had sort of convinced me that, okay, I think I want to do this, even if it's just for a snap or two. So I thought they were going to try and make it happen. So I was a little surprised. In fact, I texted his dad, Mark, to find out, okay, was there something that I missed here? And he simply said, ultimately, it just wasn't in the cards for him to line up and play for UCF. They had accepted that. They understood that. And there were a lot of really people were torn. They were really, really torn. And I know Mackenzie has been torn, because just put yourself in his situation. He never wanted to give up on football. His intention was always to come back and win the starting job at UCF. And that was his goal from the moment he got carted off the field, that he was going to come back better than ever for UCF. And now here comes his best friend, who grew up in the same place as him, who's only at UCF because of him, because he paved the way for him to get there. And he has put together statistically one of the best seasons, if not the best season in UCF history. And you're sitting on the sideline and you're thinking to yourself, how can I legitimately come in here and try and win the starting job from him? It's not fair to Dylan, and I don't think Mackenzie felt it was fair to anybody on the team. So I can put myself there mentally with what Mackenzie was dealing with and going through throughout the entire season, because make no mistake, he wants to play again. He firmly believes that he will be a starting quarterback again. He just did not feel it was right at UCF to do that to one of his closest friends on the team, to the locker room, to the program he built so much time, spent so much time building up, or to Dylan. And so that's why he maintains that this is the best decision for everybody moving forward.
Just to clarify quickly, one of the things that Mackenzie said in the statement that was released on the game at ESPN was that he didn't want to take a ceremonial snap, essentially. Did he mention to you, was he willing to do that prior to? Was that something he was considering, that if he had to go out and just take a one snap or kind of take a knee at the end of the game, is that something he was willing to do initially?
Again, I think he was torn on that. I really do, because I'd had previous conversations with Mackenzie where he had told me, if I'm going to go out there, I'm going to be the starting quarterback. Yet the last time I talked to him leading up to the USF game, he talked about wanting to have a role in the game. So I really do feel that he felt conflicted about everything and what his role was going to be and who he was and what he was doing. Because, as I said before, the ultimate goal, of course, is to be the starting quarterback. And he didn't just want there to be some sort of, I don't know if pity party is the right word, but just some sort of, oh, yeah, here he is taking the snap. Good for him. No, he wants to be the starter again. But at the same time, you've got all these emotions of knowing I'm never going to play at UCF again because I'm going to make this decision to go ahead and transfer. So I understand why maybe there were even mixed signals coming out from Mackenzie and what he was trying to accomplish, because I'm sure he went back and forth on what he wanted to do and how he wanted to handle anything. And ultimately, he just decided that it would be best for him to not suit up and not have a role against USF and try and go somewhere else in order to have that much bigger role that he so desperately wants.
Andrea, when did you learn of his intention to transfer? Did he mention it to you at all before the USF game when you spoke to him?
No, he did not. He let me know that he was going to transfer roughly around the time that it was going to go out. And so I was quickly able to do an interview with him that posted up on ESPN.com. I was not surprised because he had been so adamant to me about wanting to be a starter. And you could just tell that was probably not going to happen for him at UCF because of what Dillon Gabriel has done the last couple of seasons. So I don't think the decision necessarily took a lot of people by surprise because of what has transpired at UCF over the last couple of seasons. And even when I sat down and I talked last December to Mackenzie and Dillon at the same time for a story that I eventually did for ESPN.com about the passing of the torch, so to speak, Mackenzie knew even then that it was going to be difficult to unseat Dillon because of the fabulous freshman year that he had had. So I think folks probably saw, if you read between the lines, that it was going to be difficult for Mackenzie to win that starting job back. I think initially, after he got hurt, not knowing who Dillon Gabriel was or what he was capable of, I think we all felt, okay, he might have a good chance to be able to do this. But after the last couple of seasons, I think it just became clear to everybody that it was going to be extremely difficult to do that, not just on the field, but from an emotional standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, from a locker room standpoint, that ultimately this was the decision that he had arrived to. And so when he told me, I don't think I was necessarily surprised, and I'm not sure that a lot of folks at UCF were surprised either.
How would you describe his demeanor that day when he told you, when he was talking about it? Did he seem excited about a new opportunity, or was he kind of sad talking about leaving UCF?
It was definitely emotional and bittersweet, and not bittersweet because he's leaving UCF. Not at all. In fact, I used that word. I said, would you describe it as bittersweet? And that's exactly what he said. I would never say the word bitter because I loved every second of my time at UCF. And he spoke in very loving terms about the program, what it's done for him, the opportunities he's had, the way that Knight Nation prayed for him and was there for his family and has always been supportive of him and has always wanted nothing but the best for him. And it's sad to leave that behind. It really is. And it's hard. I asked him several questions about that, because this has been such a supportive environment where everybody knows what he's gone through, the hard work he's put in to get there, the training staff, the medical staff, the doctors. I mean, Mary, the trainer there, has been with him from the moment he got hurt. And she would go to his house and do his rehab there for him on days he didn't necessarily feel like going into the facility. And these doctors have charted every single step of that recovery. And all of his teammates have been there with him. Josh Heupel's been there with him the last couple of seasons. So to leave that support group behind and all the people that know him the best behind, it was difficult for him. This was not as if it was a decision that was easy, even though it may have made the most sense. It's extremely difficult leaving behind a place that you now consider home, and UCF is home for him. But at the same time, I do think he's eager and excited about a new opportunity, a new challenge that awaits, because anybody who knows Mackenzie knows how completely driven he is, what a fierce competitor he is. And he wants that starting job so bad. And if it has to happen somewhere outside UCF, then that's what it's going to take. And he is going to work his tail off to get there and to prove to people that his comeback is fully complete. So I do think that there were emotions there, both happy emotions, but also some sad emotions too, because UCF has been a place that has made him who he is. And he knows that, he understands that. And as he told me, he wanted to make sure the UCF fans knew that he would always bleed black and gold.
Andrea, you mentioned new challenges ahead. What do you think Mackenzie's looking for specifically in his next school? I know we talked a little bit about, a chance to play and winning now. Did he mention anything specifically that are kind of his criteria as he goes on this journey to find that next challenge?
Yes, he did. There were a couple of things that he mentioned. Number one, he wanted to go to a program that had a chance to win. Number two, he wanted to go to a program that has a solid offensive line because, as he told me, he wasn't looking to be getting hit a whole lot and being on his backside a whole lot. And number three, he wanted to go to a place that had a solid coaching staff that had excellent strength and conditioning trainers and doctors as well, because of everything that he's gone through with his rehab. He wasn't looking to go to a place that was in transition. And so, of course, I said to him, Mackenzie, there's going to be two words that come up the second your name goes out that you're going to the portal, Scott Frost. And he started laughing. And he's like, I know. That's exactly what everybody's going to say. And, of course, we all saw that immediately after he went into the portal. So, obviously Nebraska needs a quarterback. They've got a solid coaching staff, one that he's got relationships with. I understand that. Their offensive line, generally speaking, is usually good because it always is at Nebraska. I don't know if they fit into the criteria of a program that's ready to have immediate success. They've had some issues there over the last couple of seasons. So I don't know where Nebraska would be on the list or where anybody else would be on the list. Some folks have asked me about Florida State, for example, as a school that maybe he could stay in state at. Florida State obviously has a new coaching staff, not strong on the offensive line. I don't necessarily know if that fits the criteria. And having said all of that, Mackenzie also wanted to make it clear that he wasn't going to sit here and start eliminating people off the bat. But he wants to hear what coaching staffs have to say throughout this process. He's not going to rush into any decision. He's not going to sit here and make any rash decision either. He's really going to think about this process, think about what place is going to put him in a position to be successful, because he knows he's got 1 year and that's all he's got. And that's also going to be interesting to see which team is going to go after him, knowing that they're only going to have him for a year, that he hasn't played in 2 years, that he's going to have to go through this full battery of physicals and tests. Mackenzie's completely expecting that. You sort of don't really know what you're going to get, even though you've got the game tape and you know what he is capable of, because he hasn't played in 2 years. And one of the things that was really important to Mackenzie was when he was running the scout team was to be able to get some of that on tape, because now he has something to show coaches as he's moving forward, that it's not just game tape from 2017 and 2018. He has something to show them from what he was able to do at UCF practices just now, very recently. So I'm most interested to see what school is going to be the one that's going to take the chance on him and give him this opportunity.
Well, not to put you on the spot here, but obviously you cover college football for ESPN. Are there any schools out there that you think would be a good fit for Mackenzie? I'm not asking you to report anything, because I know, to your point, no one really knows yet. But are there schools out there that you think would be served into making a call into Mackenzie and checking on where he's at right now?
I think a lot of that is going to depend on what happens here over the next couple of weeks. Obviously, we have signing day coming up. There's an early signing period here in December. There are going to be a lot more players, I think, in the next couple of weeks announcing decisions either to transfer or go to the NFL draft. That will create some roster movement. I think one of the tricky things here is because this is a free year with COVID for every player in America, coaches aren't really sure what their rosters are even going to look like over the next couple of weeks. And I think that, to me, is something that nobody really has a great idea about. And therefore, it makes it really difficult to sit here and say, well, I think school X, Y, or Z might make a good fit because their quarterback situation could look a whole lot different next week than what it does right now. And or their coaching situation, by the way. I don't think we're done yet with the coaching carousel either. And that's another thing that Mackenzie mentioned to me as well, in wanting to take his time, knowing that there would be some movement, not just at the head coaching position, but at the coordinator position, at the quarterback coach position, assistant coach positions across the board. And that's something that he's also going to be paying attention to. So for me right now, I just feel like it's too early to speculate or say what team I think might present a really good fit, because I don't think I even know what any of these teams are going to look like here over the next month.
Did you get a chance to talk to Josh Heupel after this decision came out, and do you know what his reactions have been?
I did not have a chance to talk to him after the decision, but I did talk to him before the USF games. And he was obviously nothing but complimentary about the job Mackenzie has done for this program, not just on the field, but off the field, in the mentorship and the guidance and the leadership he's provided for Dylan and all the quarterbacks in the quarterback room. So what he did that first year last season, considering that he had a major setback with his knee that he had recently revealed publicly, both to Tom Rinaldi and to myself, that set his rehab back by about 6 months, yet he was still in the quarterback's room. He was still coming out to practice. He was still going to games. He was still trying to be the guy that those players could rely on. I just think that speaks to who Mackenzie is, knowing how badly he wanted to get out there and be the starting quarterback at UCF and be the guy. He put all of that aside so that he could help others out and he could help Dylan be successful. So I think there's a little piece of Mackenzie that takes great pride in that, knowing that he had a role in where Dylan is right now. I know Josh Heupel is extremely grateful for that and for the leadership that he brought to the team, both throughout the 2018 season and beyond. I know that he tried to convince Mackenzie to stay. He met with Mackenzie after the USF game at his home, and they had long conversations about how they could try and make it work. But Mackenzie just didn't really see a path forward where both he and Dylan could be able to play at UCF. And as I said before, ultimately, that's what Mackenzie wants, is to have that opportunity to go and play and start somewhere. And with Dylan entrenched at UCF, he just felt like he needed to move on.
Do you think Heupel is actually maybe a little relieved that he doesn't have to make a really tough decision next year of whether to put Mackenzie back in the starting role?
That's a great question. You know, I asked him before the USF game, so what would have happened if there was a scenario in a situation where Mackenzie was healthy and he had Dylan? And he really didn't want to answer the question. You know, he's very generic with it because it's obviously difficult. That is a situation that I'm sure would have been hard for him to make a decision, because you've got a guy that I think everybody in America wants to see play again, because that would be the ultimate comeback story. I mean, think about how the nation reacted when Alex Smith came back for Washington. And that's the one player that Mackenzie always talks about, you know, wanting to come back like that. Now, their injuries were different. They weren't completely the same. And I don't think there have been players to return from the specific type of injury that Mackenzie had, where he had the nerve and the artery damage. But the closest one is Alex Smith. and he came back this year. And I know that everybody in America is rooting for Mackenzie to come back, right? That is the ultimate story that everybody can get behind. Even USF fans, I feel like, would be rooting for that to happen because of what he has done to even get himself in a position to play football again. So, yes, I think that would have been very difficult and hard for Josh Heupel. I don't know if he is relieved. That's a great question to ask him. I'm sure he wanted Mackenzie back for a whole bunch of reasons, but I know that Josh has just been grateful to have him around the program, and I know everybody at UCF is wishing nothing but the best for him as he moves forward.
Do you think it adds actually a little bit of pressure going into next season on Heupel and Gabriel? I mean, if Mackenzie goes somewhere and wins 10, 11 games or goes to the playoff, do you think it adds even more pressure to them to have a successful season next year?
That's a great question. I don't necessarily know if there's added pressure. I just think that based on what Dylan has done the last 2 years, he obviously has earned the right to be the starting quarterback at UCF. It would be hard to argue against that. I had one of my colleagues has been having him in his Heisman top 5, David Hale, because of the job that Dylan has done. So I think that would be a nice problem to have maybe if your guy, Mackenzie Milton, is out there having a terrific season, not because you told him he had to leave, because he opted to leave on his own so that he could pass the torch, as he said, to Dylan Gabriel to be able to try and do that for himself. And make no mistake, Dylan Gabriel wants to lead this team to a New Year's Six game. Everything that Mackenzie did, he wants to top that. That's just how competitive he is. And that's a great competitive relationship between those two guys. There's no hard feelings there. It's not as if it's like, oh, man, what are you trying to top me? No, I think they both – Mackenzie thinks it's great. So I don't know if it puts pressure on them. I just think that, you know, Dylan knows what he needs to do. He is driven to get the job done. I think there's pressure probably on UCF regardless of what Mackenzie does because of the season this year. It's not the season folks at UCF are used to, and it's the middle of the pandemic. And so I am not really judging a lot of teams based on this season because of the challenges and the difficulties of getting ready for not just one game, but a 10, 11, 12-game season. It has been more challenging than I think any of us outside our football program can even understand or grasp. But UCF wants to be that team that is in the hunt for the New Year's Six every single year, regardless of what Mackenzie does at his new destination.
For UCF fans, obviously Mackenzie is, arguably the best player in program history, or, inarguably at least one of the top 3 players in program history. But there are some people who are kind of asking this question around the program. Do you think it creates any kind of negative perception that Mackenzie's leaving UCF? So nationally speaking, do you think anybody's looking at that as kind of a negative towards UCF?
No, I have not heard any negative feedback at all since Mackenzie announced his decision. And I had a lot of people responding to my tweets about it, and not one of them was backlash against him or the program. I think the way that he explained himself, the way that he presented it, the way that UCF presented that beautiful video that they did, the tribute video to him, I think made it feel as if this is something that UCF stood behind, that it was Mackenzie's decision, and it was completely Mackenzie's decision. And it's something that they are okay with. There hasn't been anybody saying, how could he turn his back on UCF? Or how could UCF allow this to happen, allow Mackenzie Milton to walk out the door? I think when you listen to Mackenzie, you watch the video, you hear what Josh Heupel says in the video, you see the quotes, you understand why this happened. And so to me, as somebody who pays attention to what other folks are saying, or sometimes they'll get, texts from folks at other places or other schools saying, well, what's really going on here? What do you have to say about this? Or how could this or that happen? I didn't get anything like that. To me, the universal reaction has been, I hope Mackenzie lands a starting job and is able to get back on the field wherever he ends up. I just feel like that's what a lot of people are hoping for, especially because a lot of people feel UCF is in great hands with Dylan Gabriel as well.
Speaking of hope, for Knight fans out there, do you give any % chance that Mackenzie decides to return to UCF? Do you see that at all? Do you even give that a 1% chance that Mackenzie says, maybe I'll stay in Orlando after all?
I'm never going to say never, because I've learned way too often in sports writing that the second you do that, you're proven completely wrong. I think it would be a very slim chance of him returning. He went home to Hawaii with his mom. He is going to be working out with his trainers out there, the quarterback coach that he worked with for a long time while he was there in high school, and what he usually does during the off season. And so they're going to be there waiting to see what opportunities arise. I feel as if he's kind of said goodbye to UCF. And I think that video and some of the interviews that have been out, I know he also spoke to Mike Bianchi here in Orlando about that, just makes it seem as if that chapter is closed, but I'm never going to say never.
All right, let's zoom out for a second and talk about UCF at large. You're based in Orlando, so you know the program pretty well, obviously. Undefeated season in 17, 1-loss team in 18, and the last 2 years, 3 losses apiece, back-to-back losses in years to Cincinnati and Tulsa. Where do you see this UCF program now? Obviously, they had aspirations of kind of crashing the party, if you will, based off 17 and 18. But, some would say, hey, 3 lost seasons in a row is a step back. I guess, where do you see the program now? And considering all the other, quote unquote, group of 5 schools that are having really great years, Coastal Carolina, Marshall, how do you think UCF stacks up as you think about where they are now and where they're heading in the future?
So it really all depends on what you think the program should be. Should the program be undefeated and competing for New Year's 6 games every year? Is that a sustainable, realistic goal? Or are there some years where, okay, maybe you lose a couple games and then the next year you're back in the hunt? I'm trying to discount this season because it has been so unique and difficult on so many teams. Last year, the games and the way that they were lost, I would say probably qualifies as a little bit of a disappointment considering the high-flying success of the first 2 years. So I think this is an opportunity for UCF to just kind of recalibrate, see where they are, see where they fell short against Cincinnati and against Tulsa now for the last couple of seasons, and go ahead and try and make some changes to correct some of those issues going forward. Even a program like Boise State, for example, which you could say was where UCF was in 17 and 18 in the earlier part of the decade or whatever it was, 08, 09, 10, has had some seasons where it hasn't been undefeated or it hasn't been a loss. They're trying to get back up there. It's extremely difficult to do what Alabama and Clemson and those programs do year after year. That's why not a lot of programs do it. And I think that's kind of what UCF is facing right now. It's much easier to make that climb up than it is to sustain being right at the top, because now everybody is coming after you. Everybody knows who you are. Everybody wants a piece of you, and you're getting everybody's best game. And I think we've seen that the last couple of years. I also think there's been a little bit of UCF rubbed some people the wrong way in 17 and 18 with how brash they were about things and the national championship and crashing the playoff party. That wasn't something that played well in a lot of different places. And so I think we've seen teams perhaps be even more eager to take UCF down a peg the last couple of years because of some of the talking that was done in 17 and 18. So the way I see it is there's no reason for UCF to be a program that is outside the top 25. I think they should be a top 25 program. The question is, okay, is it a successful season if you lose a game or two? Maybe you don't make the New Year's Six every year, but you're in contention for that year after year. Considering where everything is right now, for Power 5 programs, Group of 5 programs, with the playoff, the competitiveness on that level, the way we've seen other programs in the American now rise up a little bit and meet UCF where UCF was, I think this is a good moment for UCF to reevaluate and take a step back and look at where folks are and where they need to be so that they can raise the program now to yet another level than where they've been the last 2 years.
You were around the program in the early 2000s, and you were working for the Orlando Sentinel. What do you remember about UCF back in those days, 2006 to 2010? We were in Conference USA.
Yes. Well, I was at those games when I was working for the Orlando Sentinel. And I just have to say, from where the program was back then to where it is right now, I do not recall seeing UCF flags, UCF magnets on cars in front of houses, the vocal folks on Twitter and social media from 2006 to 2010. There were no UCF anything in my neighborhood in Orlando. But now you look around and UCF is everywhere. My daughter's teachers are huge UCF fans. I had one teacher who several years ago was bidding on an autographed football from Scott Frost. I think this was 2018. And there was such a bidding war for this football at our silent auction at the school. It raised a ton of money for our school. That wasn't happening in 2010. So I just think that the level of support for the program, to me, over these last 5 years has been really nice to see, because I don't think it was necessarily there back then. I can't remember what year it was now. It might have been my first year with ESPN, my first or second year with ESPN. They were hosting a conference championship game, and the stadium was half empty. And I just kept thinking to myself, as an Orlando resident, I wish more people came out and supported this team. This is a conference championship game. This is worthy of people coming out on a really nice afternoon in December to come out and root the hometown team on. I know there's a lot of Gator fans here. I know there's a lot of Florida State fans here. I get it. But there should be a lot of UCF fans here because it's the only school here in Orlando. We've got a big enough population to support the hometown team. So to me, as somebody who's now lived here for 14 years, it's been really nice to see how much support has been gained now in this community for UCF.
You were covering the team back then, so I'm sure you had some interactions with Coach George O'Leary. Do you have any fun stories from dealing with him that you can share with us?
I did interact with George O'Leary. He was always good to me. He was always real nice to me. I remember this one time I needed to ask him a couple of questions after the press conference for a story I was working on, and he put me on his golf cart, and we rode along on the golf cart so he could finish answering a couple questions for me, and was always really gracious with his time when I was at both the Orlando Sentinel and with ESPN. And I know that he's got a reputation for being kind of gruff and somebody maybe who didn't want to do all the media and didn't really want to talk a whole lot. But I actually had really good interactions with George O'Leary and with everybody at UCF, from the moment that I started covering the team. So it has been a wonderful journey for me to get to know the folks there. I had a great relationship with Scott Frost too, and have nothing but good things to say about my interactions with him and how gracious he was with his time for me as well.
Yeah, we've actually had George on the show twice, and the one thing he's actually super nice, and he's given us like hours of his time, which is just crazy to think about. But B, were you ever aware we found this out on the show? We actually asked him about this, that his players had a nickname for him, and they called him the White Horse. Did anyone ever share that with you?
No.
Yeah, he actually got a kick out of it. We were kind of nervous to share that with him, but his players back in like '06 came up with the nickname White Horse. So whenever they were like goofing off and in the weight room or study hall or something, and they saw him coming, they would all just yell White Horse, White Horse, White Horse, and everybody would kind of clean their act up and get themselves back in line too. And Coach O'Leary thought that was an hysterical moment, and we were glad we could share that with him.
I'm glad you could share that with him. That makes me happy.
Well, he's a lot more mellow, I think, now than his time roaming the sidelines. Andrea, you've been super helpful with all your time tonight. We appreciate it. But we do have one final thing for you. We at the end of every interview, we do 5 rapid fire questions for our guests. So it could be questions about music, movies, sports. You never know what you're going to face. So we've got 5 rapid fire questions, and because we're not good at math, it's actually 6. So here's my first question for you. What do you prefer, pancakes, French toast, or waffles?
French toast all day, every day.
See, I think that's the correct answer. Not a lot of people pick that whenever asked that question, but I actually agree with you. I think that is the correct answer.
Wait, hold on. Not many people pick French toast?
That is correct, yes.
How could you not love French toast?
Yeah, we've had to hang up on a lot of guests. It's unfortunate, but a lot of people don't pick French toast. It's really weird.
All right, we might have to hang up on you depending on your answer for this one. What's your favorite?
All right.
What's your favorite Christmas movie?
It's a Wonderful Life. I watch it every Christmas season. And I cry at the end every time.
Do you consider Die Hard to be a Christmas movie?
Okay. If I say no, I think you're going to hang up on me. So yes, I do consider it a Christmas movie.
Yes, is the correct answer.
It is the correct answer.
Okay, I got it.
All right, let me sneak in a football question for you here. Do you give Coastal Carolina any chance of crashing any sort of playoff situation?
The only way it happened, the playoffs? No, not the playoffs. I'm sorry. I was temporarily New Year's 6. The only way New Year's 6 happens is if Cincinnati loses. But the playoffs, look, I have talked to these people who are in the positions of power, and they will do everything they can to make sure that the power teams are the ones that control the top 4. So, no. Sorry, Coastal.
I assume the reason for that is money? Is that the simple answer on why that kind of is the way it is?
Correct, yes.
All right, you've gotten a chance to meet a lot of athletes now in your time with ESPN and all your jobs that you've had. Is there one athlete that you haven't met yet that you're just dying to meet one day?
Gosh. I needed this question in advance. I thought you were going to ask me favorite person I've interviewed, and that would have even been difficult. Oh my gosh, I'm struggling here. Okay, so I'm going to think about that one for a second, because the thing is, in the NFL, it's hard to say because I talked to so many of these players while they're in college, right? So chances are in the NFL, I've probably talked to a player at some point, throughout their college career. So I got to think of a different sport. One of my favorite people to interview is Curtis Martin, who was with the New York Jets in it was my second job out of college. I was the Associated Press reporter in New York, and Curtis was the running back for the New York Jets. And he was always the most gracious, thoughtful interview, no matter what. They had losing seasons, they had winning seasons, and he was always the same with his time. Never looked down at us for doing our job, never disdainful, always respectful. And as a young reporter, that really made an impression on me. So Curtis is right at the top. Mackenzie is up there. And James Conner from Pitt, who is now with the Steelers. But I got to know him when he was at Pittsburgh, even before he fought cancer. And in the aftermath of that, getting to know him even better, he's just a wonderful person. And I find a lot of parallels between how hard he worked to come back and the type of person he is to Mackenzie. I feel like they have very similar personalities. So I'm gonna think about who I haven't interviewed that I want to interview while you ask me these next questions.
All right, mine's an easy one. It's a true/false question, and I'm sure I know you. You're a very responsible citizen. I'm sure you're very in tune with the environment, as we all are. So I set that up by asking you: is true or false? The paper straw is the most annoying thing going on right now.
So I avoid using straws.
Okay.
Because of that reason. So I went on a couple of years ago. This is going to be way too long and complicated, so I apologize in advance for boring people. But a couple of years ago, we did a snorkel thing with my family. And while we were on the boat, the folks, it was the Pacific Whale Foundation, I think was the name of it, started telling us about how horrible these plastic straws are for marine life and for the whales and the turtles and the sea life. It just made me so sad. Like, oh, I'm never going to use a plastic straw ever again. It's just so horrifying to hear how terrible this is for all these animals. And now I'm about to go snorkel and look at these animals. And how could I, accidentally impale one of them by using a straw? So, okay, I don't want to use the plastic straw anymore, but the paper straws, they don't work. So therefore, I'm just strawless at this point.
All right, I'll take that as a true then. That sounds like a true, because I agree. The paper straw is just not working for me.
All right, you've lived in Orlando now for the last 15 plus years. What's your favorite restaurant in Orlando?
Oh, you're going to hit me with one. Okay, so I have several different favorite restaurants, and it depends on what mood I'm in for what food I want to eat. So I would say the best restaurant is probably the Ravenous Pig, which we just got takeout from there the other night, and it was just as good as eating in the restaurant. So major shout out to the Ravenous Pig in Winter Park. I love Prado, which is also Winter Park, because I love Italian food, and that's my favorite place to get meatballs in Orlando. Hawkers, if I want like great Asian fusion food, that's where I'm going. And if I want some sushi, I'm going local with Soto Sushi, which is in the Target shopping plaza south of downtown. So those are my 4 usual go-to places if I've got a hankering for any one of those cuisines. So I hope that doesn't mean I chickened out by giving you 4 different answers.
No, I mean,
I'll accept it.
Yeah, you just gave us hopefully 4 new sponsors, so they can certainly reach out to us if they're interested. So one bonus question for you. Obviously, I know COVID has impacted a lot of the way that your job is done this year, but previous to that, obviously, you spent years covering college football, traveling each Saturday to different college towns and different places. What's the best college town? What's the coolest environment or atmosphere you've been a part of for a college football game day?
The coolest atmosphere is LSU for a night game.
Okay.
Now,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about LSU because of what happened a couple of years ago. But so the first time I ever went to an LSU night game was it was 1997. I was a student at Florida, and I worked for the student newspaper. And so we used to go to every single road game. No matter how long it took us to drive there, we were packing up. We'd rent this giant van, and we'd all pile in. There's a staff of 5 or 6 of us, and we'd go. And so I had no idea what to expect because I grew up in South Florida. I wasn't really ever in an SEC environment until I got to Gainesville. And I had been to, obviously, Florida games and Knoxville and places like that in the SEC. I've been to Alabama, been to Auburn, but nothing prepared me for the scene at LSU for a night game. The tailgating was fierce, phenomenal. The spirit, the energy, the drunk people, it all just culminated into this atmosphere that made you sit back and say, yeah, this is why I love college football, and this is why I want to do this for my job. Like, this is why I'm here. I'm a student. It's 1997. I should probably be out here drinking with these people, but I'm here to cover a game, and this is why. To be in environments like this, to try and capture moments like this. LSU ended up upsetting number 1 Florida and winning the game. And the stadium, it was shaking in the press box. It was unlike anything I had seen before. And every time I've been to Baton Rouge since then, it has been just like that. Absolutely incredible for anybody who is just a huge college football fan. Baton Rouge and going to a game at LSU has to be on the bucket list, and it has to be either 1 or 1A.
Yeah, there's obviously legendary stories about LSU and being there too. So probably a bucket list item for a lot of people. Okay, I lied. I have one final bonus question for you. This is true or false. True or false. We are your new favorite UCF podcast.
Yeah, true.
Okay, perfect.
Absolutely.
All right. The pause had me concerned there for a moment, but I'll take the true as our answer.
I mean, what I didn't want to get hung up on, so
fair.
True.
Perfect.
I'm kidding.
Andrea, you've been a great sport again. You did fantastic work with all the stuff with Mackenzie. I know Knight fans were reading all your stuff intently, and obviously a tough story for us to read, but you did a really nice job, a fair job reporting it. So I know we all appreciate that, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see more bylines from you soon covering UCF stuff as we get into the off season. But we'll be sure to check out all your stuff on ESPN.com as we roll into championship weekend and onto the bowl season. But we appreciate your time tonight.
Thanks for having me on. I had a lot of fun.
This is UCF head coach Josh Heupel, and I go 1-0 every week with my guys Adam and Mike on the Sons of UCF. Charge on, go Knights.
All right, good news, people. Before every season, we put out what we call the Pre-Season Sonnies. We ask you, and Mike and I obviously participate as well, to vote on different categories and different predictions on what will happen on the field. And we do some fun stuff off the field, Mike. So with the bowl game still looming, but it's a tad touchy because we don't know what's going to happen there. So a lot of this stuff is already kind of decided. This is not going to be our official MVP and postseason Sonny Awards. Mike and I'll do that after the bowl game. We'll give you our official winners on where we think. But here's a recap of where everybody voted on where we thought we would be as we started 2020, Mike. These are hysterical to look back on, by the way, because, man, oh, man. So let's just start with question one. Question one was, will anybody but Dillon Gabriel win the MVP? 81% of you said no. And I think, Mike, that probably holds true. 13 people said somebody other than Dillon Gabriel would win the MVP. I guess the only argument you could make would be potentially Marlon Williams. But I think other than that, it's a pretty handy win for Dillon Gabriel, no?
Yeah, Marlon gives him a run for his money, for sure. He had a season that we haven't seen at a wide receiver, and he only played in 8 of the games. He was fantastic. So that'd be the one that you can put up there against him. But Gabriel had a fantastic year himself. He won Player of the Week how many times? Like 4 or 5 times in the AAC. He was Pro Football Focus Player of the Week for his game against the Cows. A very good season for Dillon Gabriel. So I guess he is still considered the MVP of the team.
He's a Davey O'Brien semifinalist, as is Marlon Bolitnikoff semifinalist, which was announced today. So good news there. So assuming that Dillon Gabriel was the MVP, then our next question was the most productive offensive player. 52% of you voted Otis Anderson. 18% of you voted Greg McCrae, and 13% of you voted Marlon Williams. So Otis, Greg, Marlon in that order. Mike, I think it's probably pretty safe to say that one should probably be flipped, no?
Yeah, Marlon clearly, I believe, was the most productive offensive player. We just talked about the season he had. How many, I don't have to look at the stats, but how many games over 100 yards did he have? I think all of them.
It had to be all of them, right? He had 71 catches, 1,039 yards, and 10 touchdowns. So he only played in 8 games, too.
Yeah, I think there was a game where he was under 100, and we said, what the hell happened to him? But it was one of these games where we didn't need him in like the fourth quarter. Or whatever. But just a fantastic year. Otis, a good season, but he was the clear winner of the poll, and I think he's definitely at least second Well, it's arguably second or third, him and McCray.
Yeah.
They had pretty much the same season, those two.
Yeah, Otis had 614 yards rushing, 4 TDs. McCray, 681 yards rushing, 9 TDs. To be fair to Otis, he was banged up a ton. Obviously, he also plays some receiver as well, but I think most productive offensive player, probably Marlon Williams on that one. Offensive newcomer was the next category. This is interesting, Mike. Jalen Robinson, 42% of the vote. Stretch Cradle, 30. Demarius Good, 11. Johnny Richardson, 10. And Zach Marsh-Wojan, 4. I don't think we saw any of those 4 other guys. So Jalen Robinson was certainly the correct answer here. 42% of the people voted for him. 51 grabs, 935 yards, 5 touchdowns for Jalen Robinson.
Easily the correct answer, Jalen Robinson. A great season, man. He fulfilled all our expectations, I think, this year, and we have a lot of expectations for him coming back next year now to be maybe the leader of the wide receiver group. Great season. I'm disappointed we didn't get to see more of Johnny Richardson. We saw a flash of him early in the year when he broke a touchdown against, I forget who it was, East Carolina maybe?
Yeah.
And I thought we were going to see a lot more of him.
It seemed like he hit the doghouse after that Tulsa fumble. I literally don't know if he saw the field after that. He probably did against, what was it, Temple maybe? But he seemed to be in the doghouse. I thought we'd see more Stretch Cradle. Again, he got 30% of the vote as an offensive newcomer. It's funny that Jalen, Stretch, Damaris, Johnny, and Zach Marsh-Wojan. Again, we barely saw those other 4 on the field in any significant playing time, which goes to show how much sometimes we hear these names in practice and we think they're going to be guys we're going to see in the field. It just goes to show how hard it is to really get out there on the field each and every week. Next up,
Stretch, I thought for sure, yeah. And Marsh-Wojan, I don't think he played at all. I forgot he was even on the team.
I think he did some blocking. I think he was like field goal unit. Receptions leader. This was the closest vote we had. 44% of you voted Marlon. 43% of you voted Trey Nixon. Obviously, Marlon is the clear winner there. 71. Trey only with 14 receptions. But again, Trey only played, 2 games, Mike? 3 games? So, obviously, had Trey been healthy, we'll see how this falls. But 44% of you got it correct with Marlon Williams.
Right. Imagine the wide receiver group we would have had if Trey Nixon was healthy all year. Because he looked solid in that opener against Georgia Tech. He looked like he bulked up this year. It was a shame to have missed him, but Marlon deserves all the credit because he had a fantastic year.
These next couple are really interesting. Defensive MVP, Richie Grant got 32% of the vote. Here are the other guys, Mike. Tunier, 19% of the vote. Aaron Robinson from Alabama, 17% of the vote. Trayvon Morris-Brash, 13% of the vote. Antoine Collier, 4%. And Eric Mitchell and Randy Charlton, also 4%. So 4 of the guys on the list don't even play on the team anymore. And then you have A-Rob and Morris-Brash. So I think Richie Grant's probably the clear winner here. And he was indeed voted the winner by the fans.
Yeah, by default, Richie Grant wins. He had a good year.
He did.
He didn't have quite the year he had 2 years ago, but a good season. These other guys, obviously, we've said everything we had to say about them. Big disappointment this season of the defense, and basically not having a clear, dominant defensive MVP tells you everything you need to know about this season.
It does.
Why we lost the games we lost.
Well, I think Richie's a semifinalist. I think it's the Thorpe Award and something else award. I forget off the top of my head. So maybe he has an opportunity too. But it's interesting, though. The other 2 names on this list, Mike, I mean, Aaron Robinson had an okay year. I think we were probably hoping for a little bit more out of Aaron Robinson this year. And then Trayvon Morris-Brash, he came on kind of late in the season, but earlier in the year, I mean, we were asking every week where he was and what he was doing. So pretty much everybody on this list either doesn't play here anymore, or probably played a little bit under where we thought, which to your point goes to show you just exactly how the defensive team really kind of transpired this year.
Right. Morris-Brash didn't really get his shot until these other guys got kicked off the team. So we saw some good things out of him. And now next year, that's going to be ratcheted up. We expect big things out of him going forward.
And the next category is even harder, Mike. Defensive newcomer is what the category was. 36% of people voted for Devod Wilson, 22 for Corey Thornton, 17 for Quade Mosier, 14 for Justin Hodges, and Jaden Francois, who did not play it down, got 5% of the vote. I think we don't even have the winner on this list, in my opinion, Mike. Defensive newcomer, in my opinion, probably should be Josh Elliscar. who is not pictured on this list here. Devad Wilson got 36%. He played well in the time we saw him. He had a big fumble strip, if you will, against the Cows. But I don't think any of these guys probably win that award. Probably go Seliskar or Devontae Brown.
Yeah, Thornton. You can make a case for Thornton. He played pretty well there at the end of the year.
Well, let me give you stats. You want stats, buddy? I got stats for you. Seliskar, 14 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 INT, 1 fumble recovery, 1 forced fumble. Thornton, 21 tackles, 1 INT, 2 PBUs.
Well, the Seliskar stats that was just a Georgia Tech game. He did it all that first game.
That's fair, yeah.
And we did see him in spurts here and there afterwards, but he had a huge game that first game. Devad Wilson, it's a shame that we didn't get to see him more because of the stupid transfer waiver thing that for some reason affects us more than other schools. Because he looked like he was coming along. He only got to play in the last few games. He had the big strip there against the Cows. He looks like he's going to be a playmaker. And Francois, who knows? I mean, we still haven't seen him play. I don't get this, why we suffer from this transfer portal when other teams don't.
Yeah.
Noah Vedral goes to 4 other teams and he plays right away.
Yeah, Quade Mosier, only 4 tackles in the year. Didn't see much of him. Again, Devontae Brown doesn't have a stat line that'll tear you up, 17 tackles and 1 PBU. But he played a lot of meaningful minutes. He didn't, I don't remember him necessarily getting absolutely torched on any play. I mean, he made some freshman mistakes, I'm sure. But so at least there is some youth maybe. And with some of the transfers coming in, we'll see what that holds for next season. Next question was toughest game, Mike. Only 3 games were actually voted on. Cincy, 63%. Memphis, 33%, Houston, 2%, Tulsa, not pictured. Obviously, we lost both the Cincy and the Memphis game. I don't know what the toughest game of the year was at this point. I mean, kind of, the 3 losses were all tough. I don't know what you would call toughest. I guess I should have defined that, Mike. But if you had to give a toughest, I mean, Cincy, Tulsa, Memphis, what?
Looking back on it, the hardest game to deal with, I think, was the Memphis game. I mean, maybe the Tulsa too. We were up big in both of those games, but the Memphis game we had won many times, and so many things had to go wrong to lose that game, and then still we had a shot to win it with a kick and missed the kick. I took that one the hardest of the 3. The Tulsa game, I still can't explain how these guys keep winning every week because they should have lost 4 other times this year, and somehow they win. And the Cincinnati game, Cincinnati is a good team. And we gave them a very good game, and we lost by 3 points. But that's a team that has been dominating everybody all season, and we hung right there with them. They're the number 7 team in the country for a reason. That one doesn't hurt me as much. I think the Memphis game, I know that's not the way we questioned it toughest, that was going to be like, which game did we think we had the hardest time to win? It's just... Well, in
that case, Cincy would be the correct answer, right? That was the game. Now that looking at it, that to your point, they were number 7 team in the nation. That was probably the best team we faced.
Yes.
If you think of toughest in terms of toughest loss that we had, we didn't predict that obviously because you and I both had them going undefeated this year. So there's that. The next question, Mike, I don't know what the hell I was doing here, but it's wins. And 12, 11, 10, 9, and 8 were the options. And this must have been pre-COVID or assuming we were playing every game. So we throw that one out, although 42% of you had us winning 12 games. So you can all take that for what it's worth. And the last question was, will we play every game this year? 70% of the people said yes. So UCF, one of the only schools in the nation to actually get all of their games in. So that was a interesting prognostication. The next set of questions were more sort of prop bet type questions. Mike, this first one's going to sting. Hate to do it to you right off the bat. Over under Mackenzie Milton playing 3.5 games. 88% of people took the under. Turns out they were right because he did not play any games.
Right. Yeah, I thought 3.5 was really high to begin with. So I believe I voted under too, but I did think he was going to play. I did think he was going to get out there at least to kneel down, and unfortunately that didn't happen. No breakup sex with Mackenzie.
Well, we keep doing that. Next one. Amount of sacks given up by the O-line, total number of sacks here. 47% of you said between 10 and 15. 30% of you said between 0 and 9. 14% of you said 16 to 20. And 7% of you said 21 to 25. According to College Football Reference, UCF's O-line is credited with giving up 22 sacks, meaning 7% of you on the 21 to 25 category had that correct. 22 sacks for the O-line.
Wow, and that's only with 9 games played. I think when we voted on this, we were talking about playing 12 games. So obviously a big disappointment. The offensive line got better as the year went on, but early in the year we had some big issues there with the false starts and.
Well, that's coming up. Once you move. Yeah, that's coming up. But to be fair, some of those, I mean, I can remember off the top of my head at least 3 that Dylan Gabriel kind of ran himself into as well. So, I mean, sacks aren't necessarily always all on the O-line, right? Tight ends, fullbacks, running backs not chipping, blah, blah, blah. But 22 sacks. I think obviously the net of this was there was a lot of optimism that we would give up anywhere between 0 and 15 sacks because those were the 2 highest categories. And obviously that did not turn out well. Third one here, Mike, third prop bet was penalties per game. So 4 to 7, 61% of the vote. 8 to 11, 23% of the vote. And 0 to 3, 14% of the vote. The winners would be the 8 to 11 crowd. UCF averaged 9.4 penalties a game.
And that's actually cleaned it up. There was stretches there where we gave up 18 and 19 penalties in back-to-back games to only average 9. That's a good job out of our guys in the second half of the year.
I had to double check that. It was another college football reference. I had to double check this one, but that's what it says. So unless they missed a game or they were like, oh, it can't be 18 and it was only 8 or something. I don't know, but 9.4 is where we are.
Yeah, I would have guessed our average is probably like 12, 13. But all right, I'll take your word for it.
Knowing what I know now, I would have worded this question differently. But the question was amount of kicks Obarski would have out of bounds. Had I known that, I would ask how many field goals he was going to miss. But Obarski out of bounds kicks 3 to 5, 52% of people. 0 to 2, 28%. More than 6, 19%. Like I counted at least 3 out of bounds kicks. It actually could be a 4th. I could have sworn I saw a 4th, but I couldn't find it in the stats. So at least 3 to 4. Either way, it puts him in the top category. 52% of you had that correct with Obarski out of bounds kicks.
Well, he did it twice for sure in the Cincinnati game. I don't remember where the other ones were. I think he went in a while where he didn't kick it.
Yeah, we went on a good streak for a while there. I forgot the third off the top of my head, but at least 3. The 5th question was just the one that shocked everybody. Color shacket for Heupel. Black 64%, white 35%. Turns out both was correct. So we all got that wrong.
The same stupid shacket every week.
Let's get rid of that thing. 6th question, first quarterback not named Dylan Gabriel to take a snap. We actually got this one solved very first week of the season, and only 2% of you had it right. Parker Navarro was the first non-Dylan Gabriel named quarterback to take a snap. This one's still up in the air, Mike, but I'm curious to see how people feel about it now. Question 7 was, is this Randy Shannon's last year? 68% of you said no. You know who you are.
We don't have the answer to it yet.
We don't.
They may be right. They may be wrong.
And the final one, what is the highest rank that UCF will see this season? 10 to 6, 54% of you. 5 to 1, 28%. 11 to 15, 14%. And 16 to 20 at 2%. Highest rank that I saw UCF is at an 11 spot, which puts us in the 11 to 15 category. 14% of you had that one correct.
All right, and we were ranked 11 after, I believe, 2 games this year. So much potential. We could have gotten so much higher. Who knows how high we could have gotten. Cincinnati's at 7. Would we be in the top 5, top 4 right now? I think probably, because we would have to beat Cincinnati if we had won all our games. I mean, talk about lost seasons and disappointments. This could have been the year I think maybe we actually would have broke through. But 11 was as high as we got.
Yeah, if we had, assuming that Tulsa was as good as they have proven to be, and the only loss being to us, or that one of the losses being to us, and same with Cincinnati, and if we had beaten both those 2 teams, yeah, I think we probably are in that, probably 8 to 5 range right now. I'm sure they'd find a way to keep us out of the playoff still, but yeah, we would certainly be in that conversation. But it is comical to look back on these things now and think of how many things that we thought we knew coming in, and things that we thought were going to get cleaned up, and how foolish sometimes we are as fans, because we look at things from a fan's perspective and a positive, rosy perspective, and the reality of it often hits you. So a lot of fun doing the Pre-Season Sonnies. Hopefully you enjoyed the results, and if you remember how you voted, you can sit back and laugh at yourself. Again, Mike and I will do our postseason awards here coming up after the bowl game, so we'll have those all for you. So sit tight for that. But let's grab a break here, and there are still games being played. We don't know how many, we don't know when, we don't know where, we don't know how. but games are being played, and if they're being played, UCF Mike has picks. Sounds UCF. Back after this.
Mike versus everybody.
All right, here we go. Mike, pick time. Again, this is challenging every week. Games are canceled, and I know you've got to track down who's playing. Now we got rescheduled games and all this other good jazz. How did last week do for you?
I am stumbling to the finish line here. Only 2 of my games got played last week. Houston and SMU got canceled for COVID, so I lost the other 2 games. 0-2. I had Memphis with Tulane. I lost that one. Tulane won that one by 2 touchdowns. I had Navy covering against Tulsa. That did not work out either. 0-2. 0-2 in the pool tracker last week. For the season now on the show with these picks, I'm almost right at 500. 16, 15, and 2. And the pool tracker still a good record, still in first place. I have a 1-game lead over UCF 87 and a 43-27 overall. We have this week, and I guess we'll do the championship games. For the pool tracker, I think it might just be this week and then the championship game next week because we're only picking American games. So trying to hold on to my lead there. I've got 3 picks here. I'm ready to go as long as I get my music to get me pumped up.
Let's move.
Game number 1, Houston, -3 at Memphis. And the Tigers have not been playing well since they beat us in that 50-49 game. They've been blown out by Cincinnati. They had a 1-point win against the Cows. They only scored 10 points against Navy a couple weeks ago. And I just mentioned they lost by 2 touchdowns at Tulane this past week. I don't know how we lost these guys. They don't seem like a good team. But the Cougars actually, they have 3 losses against pretty good teams. They lost to us, if you consider us good. And their other 2 losses are Cincinnati and BYU. So they've actually not had a horrible season. They haven't played in a month, though. The last time they played was the game they beat up the Cows 56-21. That was all the way back, I believe, like November 14th. They've had a lot of games postponed this year. I see this as a close game. I think it goes to overtime. Give me Houston to win with a touchdown in overtime, 30-24. I'll lay the 3 points and take the Cougars.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Memphis these days. Yeah, give me Houston. We'll see. I mean, I can ride you on that one.
All right. Game number 2, Navy, +6.5 at Army. Usually the standalone game on this day. Obviously, COVID had different plans. Now we got a whole slate of football games this week. The game is being played in West Point for the first time since World War II, all the way back in 1943. And last year, Navy won the game 31-7. Army had won the 3 previous years. Navy leads the all-time series 61-52 with 7 ties. But the midshipmen have been struggling lately. They've lost 4 in a row. In the last 2 games, they've only scored 13 points combined. And Army's having a pretty good year. They were ranked as high as number 22 earlier in this season. Give me the Black Knights to win this one. Something like 17-3. I'll lay the 6.5 points. Give me Army.
When Army and Navy play, everybody wins, Mike.
It's going to be a weird one, I guess, this year. I don't know how they... It's usually pretty cool when you see the all the guys file into the stadium and all that stuff. That's probably cool to watch. But it's going to be weird. I don't know how they're going to handle the crowd this year. They're not playing in a big stadium like they usually play in Philadelphia, or they play at Giant Stadium, or where the Redskins play. Not the Redskins, the Washington football team. And
it's a tough one. I know. It's a tough one.
This year they're playing at West Point. I don't know how big that stadium even is, or if they're even going to have fans. So it's going to be a little weird. And game number 3, the big game in the American Conference this week, Cincinnati, -12 at Tulsa. This is the first of 2 meetings. Obviously, they're going to play each other again the next week in the championship game. The winner of this game gets home field advantage. I mentioned earlier, Cincinnati has dominated everybody this year, except for us. They only beat us by 3. And Tulsa is the luckiest team in America this year. I don't know how they're doing it, but they seem to keep pulling these things off. Only one loss between these two teams, and it came the very first week of the year. Tulsa lost to Oklahoma State. They've been on a roll, man. This is going to be a tough defensive battle and a game where you don't really want to show these guys, the other team, too much because you got to see them again the next week. Cincinnati was in this position last year with Memphis. They had to play them 3 weeks in a row. I think Cincinnati has more to lose in this game, obviously, because they're still hoping for the playoff, even though we all know it's not going to happen. They think it might. I think they win, but I think it's closer than those 12 points. Maybe a 10-point game, something like 27-17. Give me Tulsa to cover the 12 points.
Yeah, I guess I know I'm supposed to be pro-American Conference guy and let's crash the party and blah, 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 but I don't know. I don't like Cincinnati. I'd like to see Tulsa win. Outright.
Yeah, all right. Well, I mean, obviously it doesn't really matter who wins this game.
That's
but
fair, yeah.
The next week, yeah, if Tulsa wins, I'm not upset by it. I don't care. And part of me doesn't want Cincinnati to go to the playoffs either because I want to be the team that crashes the party.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
And, I don't want them to get in there and they get blown out and then we never get a chance to get in because of it. So, even though we know that's not going to happen. We're not getting in.
We'll see. At least we got more college football this week. We got maybe there are games next week people are playing. The week after that, who the heck knows? I mean, I think UCF's bowl game is like 3 games after regular season games. So who the heck knows? So we'll have picks here when we can have games that actually can be picked. So stick tight for all that stuff. But we'll wrap up the shop here with the Cow of the Week segment. Don't move. Sons of UCF. We're coming back. I promise.
I'm Jeff Allen. Join me each week for unique yet common sense opinions on sports on the Jeff Allen Sports Talk Podcast. We will break down the sports world minus the hot takes with prominent guests and my stable of sports guys. It's sports conversation the way it should be. Search Jeff Allen Sports Talk wherever you get your podcasts or go to jeffallensportstalk.com.
This is UCF Athletic Director Danny White, and if you don't want to be the Cow of the Week, you need to listen to Adam and Mike on the Sons of UCF. Charge on, go Knights!
Danny White introduces you to the Cows, and we will share who those are with you all in just a few moments. But Mike, first off, big thanks to ESPN.com's Andrea Adelson for coming on with us here this week. Again, she's had pretty much exclusive access to Mackenzie Milton outside of the interview he did with Bianchi and Mark Daniels. Haven't heard from KZ, and Andrea's had him twice now, and it seems like she has a good rapport with him. So it's good to catch up with her and get a little bit more insight on sort of the behind the scenes and what the conversations look like, and her time covering the Knights and kind of all of college football here from Orlando.
She's made a nice name for herself now, and she's been with ESPN for 10 years, but local girl from down here in Florida, covered UCF for a while, so it's cool to see her having the success she's having, and a very nice lady. I had a good time talking to her.
Anything she shared about the Mackenzie stuff surprise you? Does anything, any noteworthy nuggets for you that you learned there?
I mean, we've covered this stuff so closely. I feel like I've heard almost everything there is to do on the subject, but I don't know, just his. Not really. What do you take out of it?
Great analysis. The two things I took out, one, I still don't know that we have clarity on what happened in between I want to play against the Cows and I'm not going to play. She referenced it as a gut-wrenching decision and Mackenzie doing what's right. I don't know, man. Something doesn't pass the smell test there, but it's really not worth getting into. I thought the other interesting thing she said that we already kind of learned about and heard, she framed it up as Heupel went to Mackenzie's house after the Cows game and sat down with him and talked for hours about how they can make it work. I would have loved to learn more details about what that conversation was. I gather she didn't get all that from Mackenzie either, but that's an interesting situation. If Heupel's driving over to KZ's place and kind of staying and pitching him on, hey, don't go anywhere. Because you brought up the excellent point afterwards, which is in some respects, you could look at this if you're Heupel and kind of go, wow, what a relief. Now I don't have to make this decision. I don't have to be the guy who doesn't play the star, the biggest star UCF's ever had, or I don't have to be the guy that benches a young quarterback who potentially now is going to leave and I'm going to be without a quarterback coming up here in my future. but she made it seem like Mackenzie referenced that Heupel was there for hours having conversations at his house. And while we kind of learned or we heard that happened, I think that was an interesting kind of picture that she painted with that detail.
I don't even know how much I really believe Heupel wanted him to stay. Like I said, I think it makes his job a lot easier, where it looks like it's Mackenzie's decision, and it takes all the pressure off him having to name a starter next year if both of them come back. I wonder what his pitch was. We don't get to hear a lot from Heupel outside the press conferences, so I wonder how hard he really tried to keep him here. That'd be interesting. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall for that meeting.
Well, his pitch obviously stopped short at Mackenzie, you're the starter next year, right? Because I assume that's what Mackenzie would have wanted to hear. Now, I can also understand and sense that Mackenzie may be like, wait a minute, coach, you can't do that to Dylan. He's earned it, yada, yada, yada. But I assume it stopped at short at, hey, it's your job next year. Dylan's going to go to the bench, or we're going to redshirt him, or whatever. Which, again, I understand why that would be the reason, or would be the decision that Heupel would not make. But it would be fascinating to hear what exactly all that pitch was about.
Yeah, and maybe one day we'll get the true story of what's really happening, why Mackenzie didn't play against the Cows. It seemed like he wanted to for a while. In her story that came out the week before, we all thought he was going to, and then all of a sudden he says, went from saying that he wants to have a role in the game to then saying he doesn't want to have a sentimental snap. Something is weird about the whole situation.
Well, we have a lifetime to figure all that stuff out, Mike. But Cow of the Week waits for no one. And so you've been scouring the interwebs for your cow this week. And who has gotten the lucky honors out of you?
Well, I think I'm going to go with the New York Jets. And I don't know if it should just be Greg Williams, defensive coordinator, or just the team in general. Why were they so close to even winning at this point? I get maybe they don't want to be an 0-16 team, but they need to start losing all their games. The Jaguars have only won one game. I think if the Jets win, who gets the first pick if that happens? And we all know that Trevor Lawrence is the prize at the end of the season. They almost blew it yesterday. The Jets were going to win this game, and Greg Williams, on the last play of the game, calls an all-out blitz and leaves his cornerbacks one-on-one, and the Las Vegas Raiders connect on a bomb to win the game. It wasn't really like even a Hail Mary where you see like 8 guys back there. It's just a one-on-one. It seemed very easy to just say, prevent defense, everybody stand back, knock the ball down. That was the only way they could lose this game, was to do it. And now I don't know if he did it on purpose or what, but he got fired for it. So today, Greg Williams lost his job for probably doing the right thing and what was best for the Jets. So I don't know who the cow's supposed to be. Is it Greg Williams? Is it the Jets? Is it just this whole situation? Does the NFL have to go to like a lottery system so teams don't tank? I don't know what the situation going forward should be. Who would you say is the biggest cow out of all this?
Well, I think the Jets are probably doing the right thing for the Jets, right? They're in a full rebuild mode. So you would say to yourself, okay, this is, as much as it sucks as a fan, I'm not a fan of the Jets, obviously, but if you were, I'm sure it sucks to know your team is going to go out there and just get hammered every week. But you also have to say to yourself, hey, we know the upside hopefully is better than that. The whole part about, like, while I'm willing to be a conspiracy theorist on some stuff, here's what you're going to have me believe about this Greg Williams thing. They looked up at the scoreboard and were like, holy crap, we actually may win this game. We're not allowed to win these games. I better do something dumb here to make sure we don't win them. Either win or lose, Greg Williams is fired at the end of the year anyway. They're not keeping Adam Gase. They're gonna clean house and fire the entire staff. So what the hell does Greg Williams care if they win a Week 13 game against the Raiders, right? Like, so I can't imagine that he's like in his headset going, "Oh shoot, I forgot we're supposed to blow this one. Hey, blitz, everybody blitz!" Like, I just can't see how that would be the actual thing that took place. Now, I'm not saying he's not a bad defensive coordinator who made a bad call on that play, but I don't know that I believe that he, who's going to be out of a job regardless of if they won or lost that game, I can't see how it benefits him for him to throw the game unless he's got some like under the table guarantee that he's the next head coach, which I highly doubt. So I guess the cow of the week is probably the NFL. Yeah, maybe they should figure out a better way to come up with a system for who gets the first pick. I don't know.
Yeah, because these teams are tanking. I think That's just a stupid call. If he's not trying to lose on purpose, then that's just a dumb call to make as a defensive coordinator, and even dumber for your head coach to let it go through. But the lottery system, is that something in the future of the NFL? I don't know. Do you think it's a good thing in the NBA? Does it seem to work?
I think so. Yeah, it gives you intrigue, but what it also does is you'll have your also ran teams for so many years, right? I mean, the Timberwolves, I feel like, are in the lottery every season. The Kings are in the lottery every season. It really puts the onus on the player, on the teams rather, to pick the right players. Because if you whiff on one of those guys, then that sets your franchise back a ton. Football's a lot different, obviously, a lot more people on the field than in basketball. But it would be interesting if one of those things that the NFL tried for a season and said, we're going to go to the lottery this year and see what happens. Because the Jags are doing the same thing, right? Gardner Minshew apparently had a thumb injury. I'm not saying Gardner Minshew is good, by the way. Apparently had a thumb injury. I don't know if he's healthy or not, but they're going to continue to start Mike Glennon. So I don't know what that tells you about who they think is or what they want to have happen, right? Yeah, they're unfortunate to already have the one win on their record. So, yeah, it makes for a dreadful football down the end, right, when you're kind of all battling to see who can be the worst team. And then here's the challenge with all this stuff, Mike. As much as I think Trevor Lawrence is good, there's no guarantee with that either. We've seen plenty of number 1, number 2, number 3 picks, completely just flame out in the NFL. So it's all still a crapshoot nonetheless. And that's the problem. It doesn't guarantee you anything, even if you win 0 or 1 games.
Justin Fields could turn out to be the better quarterback. Heck, Mackenzie Milton could come out and have the better career of all of them and be drafted in the 5th, 6th round, like a Tom Brady. So who the heck knows? But I don't know. The Jets are the Jets. And they're going to be another 0-16 team. We went so long with never having an 0-16 team. And now we've already had 2 in the last, 10 years with the Lions and the Browns. And now the Jets will be the 3rd one. Something we didn't think we'd see in a while.
Live update while we're watching Gabe Davis 28-yard touchdown catch for the Bills. So, all right, here's my cow of the week, Mike. I don't know if you saw this on social media. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's true or not. I don't even know what this means. Are you familiar with the television channel Lifetime?
Yeah.
Lifetime has partnered with, wait for it, Kentucky Fried Chicken to have a Lifetime original mini movie you don't want to miss, called Kentucky Fried Chicken, A Recipe for Seduction, starring Mario Lopez as Colonel Sanders.
What is this Mario Lopez? He seems to have a decent gig on, I don't know, an NBC where he does whatever, one of those nightly news things, right? And now he's doing this, and he just did the Saved by the Bell. He's a big part of the new Saved by the Bell. Did you see that? Because I haven't been able to watch it.
Saw, my daughter watched 20 minutes of the first one. It was dreadful. I couldn't do it.
Oh, really? I wanted to watch it, but I couldn't find a place to watch it. You have to get, Peacock Premium or something to watch that?
If you have Comcast, you get Peacock as part of your Comcast. So I don't think that's your spot though. Yeah, I watched 20 minutes of it. It wasn't very good. There's actually a trailer for this movie. I don't know if it's a real thing. If it's it's called a mini movie. Is that a 20-minute thing, a 30-minute thing? There's a plot line. Somebody is trying to basically Mario Lopez playing Colonel Sanders is seducing some lady. And there's some sort of a love scene situation. They've got Mario Lopez's hair dyed gray, and Colonel Sanders obviously has Mario Lopez's biceps. Again, I don't know if this is a spoof. I don't know if this is one of those things where IHOP was going to change their name to IHOB for a while there. I don't know what's going on here, but Lifetime, Kentucky Fried Chicken, cow of the week. I don't know what's going on here. I'm not sure I'm here for all that.
It sounds like they're tricking you. It doesn't sound real. It sounds like maybe they're just doing this to drum up attention. It doesn't seem like something Mario Lopez would do. And it sounds like the premise for this is something you could see him doing. It sounds like the premise for a cheap porn 20 years from now when his career went down the tubes for something else and he's trying to look for work. I don't know. I don't know if I buy it.
And then another honorable mention, I just saw this one too while I was talking earlier. So Twitter obviously is ablaze with the Mackenzie Milton stuff. And there's a guy by the name of Wes Medeiros. He says on his Twitter bio, he is the host of the Back Row Sports podcast. And he has a picture here, and it says, it's looking like Florida State is the leading school to land UCF transfer Mackenzie Milton. And then there's a big FSU logo and then a superimposed picture over the FSU logo. The only problem is the pictures of Dylan Gabriel.
Oh, man. These people are idiots.
And that's why he can't go to Florida State, because those are the Florida State fans.
Jeez. Florida State, I think, would bother me the least of all these Florida schools. But he's number one thing he's been saying is he wants to go to a place with an offensive line. That's been their biggest problem for the last 5 years. I don't know what Norvell's pitching him. I don't know, man. I guess we just got to wait to see where he ends up before we start really speculating. But you already know my feelings on this. Some schools are really going to bother me if he goes there.
Yeah, Florida State's a head scratcher because I can't. They're not a quarterback away from winning, and I feel like that's what McKenzie says his criteria is he wants to go to a school that's a quarterback away from competing for a championship. Florida State's in a rebuild, and if I'm Mike Norvell and I'm trying to get people to believe in me at Florida State, I'm trying to clean up the mess. I've had a rough year there too, by the way. I've run some kids out of the program. I got called a liar early on for some stuff I did. I got some people upset at me. We did not have a good year. I've had a bunch of recruits, flip their commitments. And I'm going to tell the fan base, hey, I'm your guy for the future because I'm going to bring in a one-year quarterback and not develop either of the two young guys I have on my roster right now. They're getting Brock Purdy's younger brother, who I think his name is Chuba. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it. They have another kid, Tate Rodemaker, on there. And they also have Jordan Travis, who they got out of, I think it was Ole Miss maybe. So it wouldn't seem to fit McKenzie's criteria if he's trying to go to a school that's one player away. But I don't know. Maybe it's all a smokescreen. Like maybe McKenzie's just, playing with everybody.
Yeah. Miami seems to be making more and more sense, especially if Derek King leaves. They're looking like they're playing pretty well, Miami. They just beat the crap out of Duke the other night, 48-0. So maybe they're on the rise. And that's a conference where I could see him having success in the ACC. The one tough game would be Clemson, I guess, if they play Notre Dame next year, but that's a winnable game. I mean, man, I don't know. It sucks to even talk about.
Yeah, well, I feel like we did enough of that on the show tonight, so I don't know how it came back up here at the end, but irregardless of that, fantastic job out of you tonight. Great episode. UCF observations were killer as always. Great job with the Andrea Adelson stuff. I think that was cool to have her on. We appreciate her taking some time to join us. Obviously, the Pre-Season Sonny breakdown is always fun, and all the talk off the top, talking hoops, talking bowl games, all the good stuff. So everyone who listened to all of this drivel, we appreciate you oh so very much. Thank you for tuning in. Again, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe, rate, review the podcast. It means a ton to us. The more ratings we get, the more iTunes will make sure that people hear about us, which is always a good thing. Again, make sure you're following us on social media and be on the lookout for some of these live drop-in shows. Who knows when they're coming, but they'll be out there. And unlike others, they will be on social media, so easy to find on Twitter and on Facebook. So follow us there, subscribe there, and you are all set. Mike, another good one in the books, buddy. Hopefully everybody has a great week, and we'll have some more news when we come back next week for the next edition of the Sons of UCF.
All right. I can't wait for next week because then we should already have our plans locked in for the bowl game. I didn't know it was a possibility that you're coming down. So now I'm even more excited for this game.
Yeah.
But for everybody else, if you can make it to the game, you want to come hang out with us and have a beer pregame, it'll be a cool day. The Cincinnati basketball game will probably be right before that, so we could all hang out in the parking lot and watch that game if they allow tailgating. Who knows?
Highly doubt.
We'll hang out here at the UCF Mike house and all caravan up there together. It's not far from me.
One big UCF Mike caravan. Here we go.
Watch the little hoops and then go watch the football game.
Well, that sounds delicious, everybody. Hopefully you make plans to do the same. Either way, though, we have you covered here at Sons UCF. We'll talk to you all next week. Go Knights.
Charge on.